And it looks like we are going live. How are you all doing today? I have my screens pulled up. Everything seems to be functioning at the moment. Let's hope it stays that way. We know how the anti-white bastards at every link in this chain between me and you in this transmission do everything they can to interfere with the process of going free so that you cannot be empowered and you will remain within their control, within their thought control, and therefore your the control of your behavior as well. Arcade says hello, great to see you. JT Smith is here, wonderful to see you as well. 30-year-old boomer, great to see you. And I briefly, as I scanned through at the very beginning, I saw a fantastic compliment by Lord Protector writing, "No white guilt, you are a hero of our people, the Arminius of our time, fighting against the empire of evil to protect our tribe." Well, that is an absolutely immense compliment, and I hope one day to live up to those very significant and meaningful words. Thank you so much. I see Good Mackie is here. Helmut is here. A lot of great people. Who else is here? The RC is here. Great to see you. There's Jennifer. Jilly Storm is here. Yes, with a bit of news that Antifa member shot and killed yesterday in the commission of a terroristic attack. And so the first question I want to ask, I don't intend to be on for 4.5 hours again today, ladies and gentlemen. That was a long stream we did last Wednesday. I think Poseidon is going to be streaming today at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so we definitely don't want to miss Poseidon. We will wrap things up before he goes live, without a doubt, if not before then. But the question is, why is it that it is not wall-to-wall coverage, the terroristic attack on a U.S. government facility? This is a terroristic attack on a U.S. government facility. So today we're going to be talking about, the main subject is whites don't exist, white erasure, because there are a couple things that have come together, more than a couple things that are coming together now. And we want to speak to those things to help you all. There's Ryan Manley, great to see you. Anti-apartheid Israel, great to see you. Jason, Andre, Marsha is here. Samantha Fox is here, great to see you. Shlomo, Antifa is here, great to see you. Johnny is here, Meme is here. Looking forward to the stream, he writes. Thank you very much. There's Roy, the great Roy Danton. Perfect time for a going free. Good that you're doing one outside U.S. working hours. I know, exactly. And I think maybe next Sunday, well, being Sunday for most in the U.S., that is going to be a day off for most people. But I would like to do some more streams, some more going frees for folks who are further out west in the U.S. Catch them when they are off work as well. Reich saying, racial consciousness, no white guilt. Wonderful to see you both. Thank you for all you do for our people. Good afternoon to everyone. Well, good afternoon to you. Thank you for showing up and helping us spread the message of going free. There's Androphin. Good to see you. If you all could, please, as we're slowly getting rolling, if you could tweet the stream, Gabbett, Facebook, VK, Minds. We also have Entropy is open today if you want to watch and ask questions on Entropy. As is always the case, you can super chat on YouTube at 33%, on Entropy at 15%, or you can super chat by way of the familiar alternative, which is down in the description at 4%. Hello, Jennifer. Jilly Storm says, nice shirt. Thank you very much for that. This is one of my, what I consider my summer shirts, even though it is darkly colored. Snow Nibba is here. Wonderful to see you all. So tag me if you have a statement you want me to see or a question you'd like me to answer. Obviously, I'll be reading and answering all of the questions that are associated with Super Chats. And or you can just write into either the Super Chat on YouTube and or the questions column on Entropy. I will see your statements there as well. So does anybody know, and it looks like to get things started right off the bat, we have a Super Chat by way of Entropy by Arcade Outpost. Thank you very much for that kind Super Chat of $5. And writing, I'm a big Zurius fan. He was the musician who had his whole channel deleted. Indeed, and we had him on this channel to talk about that. And in fact, before, during, and after that episode, we talked at length about my position as to why the anti-whites endeavor so vigorously to shut down those who create art, even art in this sense, synthesized music or fash wave, I guess is what it's being called, or synth wave, and why that is so important for the anti-whites to shut down. And I'll mention that argument again so that you all can share it. And Arcade writes, would you consider having him on the show sometime? His music is great. Everyone should follow him on Twitter. I heartily endorse Arcade's position about following Zurius on Twitter. Please do. And we'll see if we can have him on again. He was a fantastic. Eternalism says synthesized. Well, that's the Syntheside created a fantastic piece using my some verbiage from one of my, I don't know if it was a Going Free or if it was an interview, a TAP episode. Eternalism asking, No White Guild, have you covered problems with church other than your one segment a few weeks ago? I've talked about, you mean attending church, that sort of thing. We could talk about it again. And you can feel free to ask questions about it. And I will speak directly to those questions and concerns. Thank you for reaching out. And thank you again, Arcade, for that kind Super Chat over on Entropy to get things started today. Looks like we have 7 over there on Entropy. During these Going Free streams, I'm unlikely to have a poll over there because it's just me. I'm not going to put you all on hold while I go and write a poll. But during TAP and during other episodes like that, I usually will have a poll up over on Entropy. But back to Zurius. The reason why the anti-white, which by the way, I mentioned this, I guess it was the last Going Free. I'll mention it again because there's been some questions. Occasionally I use the word well-being, a compound word. We are using it as a compound word because it's a concept that we own. So white well-being is, of course, what it expressly states. Occasionally, I will use the word just well-being as a shortened version of that, and it means the exact same thing. Well-being, compound word, capital W, means white well-being. And we also use it, those of us who are Going Free, we also use it to name the genre of artistic work. So you can have poetry out in the world. It's about anything, but poetry that strengthens the white race, that serves white well-being, is well-being poetry. Fash wave music is well-being fash wave. Jazz is well-being jazz if it serves white well-being. So whatever it might be, if it serves white well-being, it's well-being and then the thing. It's well-being literature. It's well-being art. It's well-being paintings. It's well-being sculpture. So I think that my Sadinsky Lawson is here. Great to see you. Simon is here. Wonderful to see you as well. So I'll get back quickly. Machiavelli Sucks is here. Great to see you. Oh, you know what I need to do? Before, since Machiavelli Sucks shows up, and I immediately remember what I had put a little tag in my mind about, and that is that I want to have up this other this other screen, I'm going to have to get another monitor, folks, so that we can, I'm surrounded by monitors. You can't see from where you're sitting because they go this way, but maybe I'll put another one over here so that I don't have to click through and I use them obviously for other things as well, but so that I don't have to click from one screen to the next. But last week we had the issue of some of you super chatted and it never showed up in the live stream. So super chatted on YouTube and it never showed up on the live stream. I don't want to have that happen again and miss anybody's super chat during the stream. The obvious intent there is to make those, if it's not just a glitch, which it probably is, it's probably just a glitch. But if there's any malice behind it, the intent there would be to make people in our community, heroes, you all in our community, make you think that I'm not being considerate of you. And that's absolutely not the way I feel about you. And that is not how we are going to conduct ourselves in the community of white well-being and going free. We have, we practice the highest honor and integrity. For example, when I made the decision on TAP, when I decided to start conducting these interviews, and then I got the opportunity to have super chats, I immediately made the decision that those super chats were going to be shared with my dear friend, colleague, and co-host, Jared George of the Great Order. And then Jared and I decided jointly that we would share those on TAP, on that show. We would share those super chats with our guests as a token to them from our community of the gratitude of the community, because we want them producing. They're not going to make a lot of money from it. It's, as you all know, it's a token to show gratitude. It's a pat on the back of what these super chats, the majority of them are. And we want creators of content for white well-being to know that they're appreciated, so that they will continue to produce more content. And that was the decision there. So let me get this open, and then I'll talk to the issue of the music and why the anti-whites go after it. I guess I can do it while I'm doing this. And that is that Robert E. Lee, for example, said you can't have a war without a band. That is the importance of music to any resistance. When you have music, now if it has words in it, it has a power, and I'm not taking anything away from music that has words in it that has a power. But when you have music that is meant for, and the titles are, I can't even really say if we're being very specific about Zurius and his work, but let's say Senside music in general, because I don't want to speak to him specifically and say that he's doing X, Y, or Z, even though he might heartily endorse what I'm about to say. But if someone is creating synth music, there's no words in, or any acoustic music, there's no words. And the music is intended for those who are fighting back against the regime. The music is intended to undergird and put a soundtrack to the revolution of thought against the anti-whites. That is a extremely powerful psychological tool. It's a whole discussion that we can go into and make a whole show out of in and of itself. That aspect of it. The fact that it doesn't have any words in it of a foreign language that you might not know. Say you're Polish, and so if it's in English words and you don't speak English, it's not going to make any sense. But if you know that the music, whether it's fast wave or some acoustic this or that, if you know that it's meant for the revolution that is resisting, the revolution of thought that is resisting the anti-whites in the regime, you can then apply it, and it becomes universal and therefore extremely powerful. So it can be shared from country to country, region to region, across language barriers. It can excite people. It can bring people together, weld them together about what pieces they like most, what pieces are most moving, etc. This is why we need to be creating well-being art, well-being music. And the evidence that the anti-whites know this to be the case, know what I just articulated to you to be the case, The evidence of it is that they go after these people with absolute reckless, ruthless abandon and silence them, even when there is nothing there that they can say, oh, you breached our rules by saying this, that, or the other thing. They just delete it. They could not make it more obvious. With as careful as I am here so that I can continue to fight for white well-being, as careful as I am in my criticism of anti-whiteism and the regime, it would still be much easier for the anti-whites to say, he really means this. Just like when we looked at these terrible pieces written by these talentless typists from the Huffington Post and Cross Eyes on the Right, they just misrepresented me. They said, well, no white guilt believes X, Y, or Z. They just absolute lies misrepresent me. You can't say that Zurius or somebody else producing music that doesn't otherwise have words in it, you can't say, well, what they really mean is this, because no one's going to believe that. No one's going to say that guitar riff actually means white supremacy. It just doesn't make any sense. So they really demonstrate their hands. It's like you're playing cards with someone and they just turn them all around for you to look at. They said, look, we know that this is going to make you all feel proud and empower you and etc. Yet again, another reason why we don't see country musicians. There's a massive segment of the white population all around the world that absolutely loves that music. And they love the tunes. They love everything about it. They love. And yet none of that music is focused on our well-being. None of that music empowers us as a people and therefore protects us as individuals. And the reason why is that the anti-whites are simply not going to permit it. No record company, as far as I know, and I'm talking with musicians, is dominated by anything else than anti-whites. And if the moment one is, and they start gaining any significant ground, you're going to see the anti-white power from every sector of society come in to attack the entity. Suddenly the IRS will show up. Suddenly the lights will go off at their studios. Suddenly the individuals who are behind it will be audited as well. They'll have their names and identities and the identities of their children and children's schools put out on the internet for sickos like we saw just yesterday, with this anti-white dirtbag who was from an extremist anti-white militia. I know they want to be called by another name, something innocuous, but it's an extremist anti-white militia. They're gun-toting anti-white insane asylum patients is what they are. And so in a perfect example of what I'm discussing here, you have the anti-whites in the regime creating this anti-white narrative, supplying lies to bolster the anti-white narrative, specifically about what is going on today, supposed to be beginning today, which is the roundup of, and now mind you, the roundup of illegal aliens, of which there are many millions of illegals. Well, I guess I have to be careful now, of border crossers. I take that back. Many millions of the anti-whites want them called, I think they want them called undocumented workers, and now they can't even be called that anymore. So we will just refer to them as border crossers. That is who these people are. They're not illegal aliens. They're not they're not undocumented. They're not lacking documents. They have merely crossed the border, and so they are border crossers. So you have the regime's media telling the country that this horrific, just monstrous, right out of the movie roundup is going to be taking place of border crossers across the country. And actually what Trump said in his, I have a note somewhere, when he made the statement, I think it was something like up to 2,000 is what he said. So it's something like, oh, potentially 2,000. So potentially 2,000. There are more border crossers who have who have committed felonies in the past week than the potential 2,000 they might collect starting today. But here you have this crazed anti-white from this anti-white militia who decides, because this is going to happen, he is now justified in a terrorist attack. He attacks with a rifle. They say rifle. It is probably a machine. We'll call it a machine gun, because that is what the regime would call it if it were a white person doing this for white well-being. Instead, I think the guy might be an anti-white person. So he shows up at a government facility with a machine gun and grenades, and he attacks a government facility with a machine gun and grenades, a rifle, and incendiary devices is how they phrased it. So a machine gun and grenades, a car gets caught on fire, and he's finally killed. My point being that if you begin making this music, this to undergird white well-being, the anti-whites are going to endeavor to shut you down. And if you start a record label and you are where the anti-whites could rile up these really sick malefactor anti-whites, these dregs of society, to come after you, this is what they hope would happen. They hope that somebody like this is why when they write these hit pieces on me, they don't just call me No White Guilt. They always want to make sure they put the name out there, because they want somebody like this to come after me. And as extreme as that, or just somebody to come up and maybe try to do one of these Spencer attacks where they run up and just punch you and run away, something of this nature. But that is why people like Zurius and those who produce the music are shut down. Now, if you are a singer and you make music, this Jack White that made the Ballad of Sky King is magnificent. I think it's a banjo he's playing in the piece. That is a magnificent piece. We need to be producing more well-being rock, well-being bluegrass, well-being country music. You are, let me just, and let me speak to you, those of you out there, just for a moment, who are very talented at painting, at singing, at playing a musical instrument, etc. I come across you all the time. Well, I say all the time, regularly. I come across these folks who think they're going to make it big because they've got a great voice, or they can really write songs, or they can really. If you are one of those people and you care about white well-being, you care about America, you care about whatever country you live in, you care about the UK, and you think you're going to make it big. If you care about your country, they're not going to make you big. They're not going to allow you to get big. The names that are in the spotlights are not the names that an unbiased funneling of talent and etc. have slowly filtered up to the top where we all could see it, where some divine being or angels have said, no, this one here. No, what happens is you have people with wealth, with the ability to communicate to the masses, who is going to be their star, who's going to be the person in the limelight. I know people who work in Hollywood. I know people who work in a couple of these industries, and you don't make it to the top without having to go through a lot of sickness and a lot of demonstrations of hatred for your kind, if you're a member of Western kind, and for our country, for Western civilization. So if you're one of these people and you care at all, you're going to have to renounce all of that to be able to make it big. If you are one of these people, and this is the next thing that I really want you to think about it. If you're one of these extremely talented people, you have a beautiful voice. I heard the other day a woman singing, and she's another one of these just magnificent voices in her living room, playing, she's talented at several different types of instruments. And it's actually, this is really curious. Maybe it has something to do with Jack White and playing his song. But or maybe some of you could tell me why. Why did this woman get recommended to me? I don't watch this. I don't watch people playing music in their living rooms. Why is that randomly sent to me? Is it because I've been playing the Jack White thing, the music there? But whatever. So it was sent to me, or it was suggested to me, and I thought, is this going to be another one of those just supremely beautifully voiced people? And sure enough, it was. Well, I listened to 20 seconds or so, so I guess perhaps you could be bad beyond that 20 seconds. But if you're one of these people who are really talented, the odds that you are going to be found, just forget about having to, service whatever agents and on whatever casting couches that you're going to have to get filthy on. And this happens all over. I mean, come on, if you're still this naive, then you really need to take your head out of your rear. But what's really goes on, if you want to be in the limelight, you've got to do some pretty disgusting things. But even before then, the odds, you might as well buy a lotto ticket. It doesn't matter how beautiful your voice is. It doesn't matter how well you play your instrument. The odds that you are going to be the one is zero. It's just zero. Instead, why don't you put your name in the history books, the ones that we will write? Instead, be a hero of our people. Be the person whose songs generations of our people sing, our children, whose songs our children sing long after you're gone. Be remembered as that. Be remembered for creating that beauty. Well-being rock, well-being whatever style of music or poetry or whatever it is that you create. Be that person. You're not going to make it big. The reality is, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to make it big. We could take every musician, every singer, and I say the same thing with athletes. I could have played professional baseball, and I made the decision to play college football instead. And then when I went back, they were like, who are you? Why would we pay any attention to you? You could take everyone at the top level of acting, musicians, professional sports. You could take all of them and then snap your fingers and have them gone tomorrow. And there would be every one of those roles filled with people equally, if not more talented. And you could do the same thing again that day, and every one of those roles would be filled again with people equally, if not more talented, again and again and again. So don't think because you are a handsome man or a beautiful woman and you sing well and you play the instrument well, whatever it is, that you're automatically going to go into lights and make millions and millions of dollars off it. No, in fact, the odds are enormously stacked against you. Do something valuable with your life. Contribute to the cause of white well-being. Give your life meaning. There's no meaning in creating, just enriching yourself. There's no meaning in being selfish anymore. The ones that survive are going to be the people like us who turn away from this. We turn away from this darkness of soul, of this meaninglessness, this eviscerated mentality. The ones who turn back toward love and kin and hearth and family and country, those are going to be the ones that survive. Now, you can be the person, you can be one of the people who create the music for that reunion, the music for that recapturing of our destiny, or you can just sit in your living room for the next 20 years hoping that you'll be seen and no one will give a damn, because there are tens of thousands of more as good, as pretty, and as mellifluous of voice. So let's see what you all are saying. See if I'm missing anything. Looks like we have a super chat by way of the familiar alternative by Jason's Shirt. Donated $2. Let's see what he writes here. The question is, he writes, devil's advocate, are the thousands of black-on-black crimes that go largely unreported, black-on-black crimes that go largely unreported by the mainstream media, also hush crimes? They are hush crimes because it undermines the anti-white narrative, which is that non-whites are good and white people are bad. That is the anti-white narrative. They cannot tell you, and this is for that very same reason, Jason's shirt, for that very same reason is why we have these anti-whites like Cross Eyes on the Right and many others who deny genocide in South Africa. They're deniers because if you knew what was taking place there as a white person, if you knew how many of the crimes that non-whites are committing, if you knew that, you wouldn't be so easily misled, would you? So if you believe, one of the biggest problems, and continues, but is decreasingly so a problem that we have, is that we have white people who live in places where they've never seen a non-white person, never really dealt with, except for the only ones maybe they had contact with are right side of the bell curve, and it was just a non-white person here or there. They certainly didn't have numerical courage, and they were very polite and intelligent people. Those people exist, absolutely. I want them to lead happy and wonderful, lovely lives of making beautiful memories with their families and children. And then those people end up telling the rest of us who have to live in places where non-whites have numerical courage, where non-whites have much higher crime rates than the white population. They end up telling the rest of us, oh, you're just, you all are evil, fill in the anti-white slur, because, you know, the 1 or 2 or 10 non-white people I've dealt with, they were all just like me. In fact, they were better looking, or they were more intelligent, or what have you. They're just like me. And so therefore there must be something wrong with you. So that is the exact same reason they don't tell you why there are that many crimes being committed. Specifically, Jason, you mentioned the black race. I don't like singling out any particular race, but you're talking about the black race committing crimes. They don't want the general population hearing about blacks committing crimes at any rate higher. Could you imagine if they decided to report all of these crimes and say the race of the criminal, how quickly that would convey to the population what's happening, and some info about the world that the anti-whites would like to keep away from the general public. So let's see, we have, make sure if I haven't missed any super chats and take a look at some comments. While I do, I will have a sip of coffee. And if you all could please super chat, if you all could please tweet, gab, put out on Facebook, put out on, is it called VK? Minds. And then if you do want to super chat, the screen I'm looking at right now, which is how I accidentally said super chat, says across the top. If you do want to super chat, I have this super chat screen open on YouTube, and it won't be able to sneak by this time as it did last time. In fact, I wanted to mention that as we wrapped up last Wednesday, in my effort to not miss anyone who sends a super chat, that Mrs. Horst sent a $4.99 super chat, writing thank you with a heart. Much love in return, Mrs. Horst. That came in right after I closed the stream last Wednesday, so thank you very much for that. And we also had the great Luke, who came in with a super chat of $20 right as I closed the stream and therefore was unable to read it. And this was last Wednesday, and Luke wrote a very humbling statement here. He says, epic stream indeed. Thank you, Jason. Just thank you. Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you for that investment. Thank you for writing that those kind words to me. Thank you for being here. And I will always happily and humbly serve our people. So you never have to, I get honestly, at Root, you never have to worry about having to thank me for what I do in the hopes that I need appreciation to serve our people. It will never end. I will never stop. So let's see here. Make sure I haven't missed anybody. The super chat screen shows me up to date. We have a super chat by the great Roy Danton over on Entropy. Thank you so much, my good friend. And I see Roy super chatted with $10. Thank you very much, Roy, and wrote, "It's not just country music. Even classical orchestras increasingly mix in anti-white events and narrative. I really like country music. It's such a shame that it has been corrupted so much." Amen to that, Roy. I have family members who love country music. I have good friends who love country music. And it has, for many years, hurt me deeply that this music that could provide so much strength to our people, because so many of our people love it, could provide so much strength. So many flags would run up the flagpole overnight if country musicians would start singing about white well-being, pride in our people, the well-being of our white babies. There are talents out there, folks, that are just absolutely astonishing. Musicians, singers, they need to do this. And as I say, harkening back to what I said a moment ago, if you are one of these guys or gals and you are talented, you play country music, I'm just going to tell you, I've been in Nashville. There are better looking, better singing, better everything than you. You have no chance in hell at getting into their corrupt, dirty system just to get on to their casting couch to have to do something disgusting. So please do something real, do something valuable and eternal with yourself. I mean, be the Neil Armstrong of the music side of white well-being. Write these songs, put them out there. Let's find a way to make you enough money to get by. You're not going to get rich, but let's find a way to make you enough money to get by. And let's get those tunes out there to save your people. The gratification you will feel as soon as you turn your life over to white well-being is something that is ineffable. I cannot describe it to you, but it is worth far more than the dollars that they can give you for the disgusting acts that you have to give in return, that you have to sell in return. Trust in that. So thank you very much, Roy. Absolutely fantastic comment there. And thank you for the super chat. Let me check up through here. Sadinsky, let me ask you if there are any issues in the chat. Since you are a moderator, could you please attend to those? So any troublemakers, we want to make sure that we don't have Gresham's law apply to us, which of course is that Gresham's law is that bad money will chase out good money. If you have two currencies together, the weaker one always chases out the best one. If you have people in the comments section that are making comments that are unproductive or destructive, undermining productive conversation, etc., then they have to get a 3-strike rule, which essentially we give them 3 opportunities, say, hey, knock it off. And if they don't, then you'll be silenced. And if you continue to be a problem, this is my house, and I've got no problem throwing your ass right out. This is not this is my channel and therefore my house, and I'm not going to allow you to jeopardize the work that we're doing here for white well-being. There's too much opportunity for anti-white infiltrators to come in, pretend they're one of us, cause problems, say a bunch of repulsive things, insult women and insult Irish people and insult etc. in the chat to break us up, to cause us to infight, and then to say something that then YouTube, anti-whites at YouTube can say, oh, retroactively, we are now going to ban this. And oh, look, 2 months ago, somebody in Jason's chat said that, so there goes Jason's channel for white well-being. No. If you get in my way, I've said this to every woman I have ever dated. The cause for white well-being comes first. If you think for a moment you're going to get in the way of that, you better think again, because your ass will be right on the street too. This is what comes. This is far more important than my life. So if it's more important than my life, how do you think I'm going to feel about throwing you out of my chat? Thank you, Sadinsky. Arnar writes, it's getting control over media. Do we invade the current media structures or create our own platforms and build an audience? The anti-whites have an absolutely powerful immune system. to anyone who says anything that is in any way contradictory to anti-whiteism. So as soon as they hear it, they're on you, and then you're gone as a heretic. Remember, they persecute on the grounds of heresy. You're not anti-white enough. We were just reading this article. Dorsey not anti-white enough, and so therefore they're going to roast him until he does decide that anybody who is an anti-white or contradicts anti-whiteism at all is out. So we have to build our own platforms. And given for communication, and given that, thank you to the white race once again, thank you Westman, thank you Western Kai, we have all of these fantastic means of communication. We are able to do this. We are able to wage this guerrilla information war. We don't need billions of dollars to try to take over some media empire, try to sneak in and hope that they're not going to notice. So thank you for that question. It's a fantastic question. Let's see what else we have here. Over on Entropy, we have American Life, super chatting with $2. Thank you very much. And writing, hail. Well, hail in return. Thank you for being here in the cause for white well-being. Let me make sure that I don't want to miss anybody. If anybody's got a good statement or a good comment or a good question, I want to make sure if you see somebody who has made a good statement, a good comment, a good question, and I missed it, please tag me and put it up in the chat again. I want to make sure this isn't an opportunity that I want to provide perhaps maybe every Sunday or most Sundays from now on, and maybe some other days as well, these Going Free streams, to give you all dialectics and lexicon from Going Free to empower you in your conversations, to help you go free. And that is the purpose of these. That's why I'm always happy to have big named people, big contributing people show up, like RC, for example. Very happy to have RC here because he's always provides insightful comments in the comment section as well. So we all are learning off of each other. No one is who was it in the, I don't think it was the Huffing Compost article. One of them said, called me a guru. There's no guru. There are no gurus. We are all shield bearers. And if one of us finds a way to hold the shield a little better against the anti-white attacks, the victimization of our people, then we can learn from it and we can all do the exact same thing. Here, our objective is white well-being. It's not fame, it's not attention. It's for us all to get stronger at helping ourselves and helping our friends, family, and then, of course, our brothers and sisters who are strangers to us go free from anti-whiteism. So we got a $5 super chat coming in from Johannes at $5. Blood and soil eternally, he writes. Thank you very much for that kind super chat. And we have Chris with Norwegian krona, 200 of them. Didn't write anything, but thank you for that. Those 200 Norwegian krona. At least I think that's what it is. If I'm wrong, somebody could please correct me. Zadinsky says, thanks for the shout out. Indeed. Let's see. We have Dion is here. Jay Hart is here. Lisa's here. Sifu is here. Great to see you. Jamie is here. Bone Canoe is here. Good to see you. Let's see. Slowly. Lapis is here. Train Kelby is here. Just Mark is here. Alex is here. Germanic Celtic is here. Good to see you. Lord Protector, in order to answer your question on who is white, can we just look at all the lists of people who don't get government benefits and whom you can legally discriminate against? I did an experiment years ago, ladies and gentlemen. It's something I said Zendrofen applauds too. Thank you very much for that. I did an experiment many years ago. I wondered how easy or hard would it be for a white man to go into a welfare center, and I should do this experiment again and take a hidden camera with me. How hard or easy would it be for a white man to go into a welfare office and get support? And let me tell you, they wanted nothing to do with me long before I provided information. You should have seen, provided them any information, because I knew once we started getting really into numbers and things that would be that the ruse would be up, the game would be up. So it was kind of like what this guy does now. Gosh, what's his name? The guy who has pulled off all of these undercover things, where his initial big one was where he dressed up as a pimp, and they went to these Democrat. I think that organization still exists, actually. He dressed up as a pimp, and he said he wanted to bring in these underage prostitutes, and they said, "Sure, we'll help you do that." Of course, Democrat being anti-white. It was sort of the same thing. James O'Keefe, Julie Storm, thank you very much for that, Julie. Yes, indeed. And let's see. So, yeah, before he did that, I went to the office, and yeah, Project Veritas, that's it. And Acorn, right, Rooster, very good. Does anybody know, is Acorn still around? I think they're actually still, or at least for a while, they were still around. They were still receiving government money, even though there was a vote to take away money because of this, and then afterward it was snuck back in. You know how the anti-whites work. Everything is a lie. You're dealing with absolute demons. This is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, let's start, and if you catch me do it, stop me. There is no right left. There is no right left. There are white people across that entire spectrum that will love our people and preserve our people. And so there's no, now of course, on the left-hand side, there are these prerequisites. So there's going to be far fewer of them. I don't deny that, who care about our people. But prerequisites to be anti-white in many ways. But there is no left-right. It is up-down. That's where the spectrum is now, ladies and gentlemen. When we recapture our destiny, we can get back into are we going to have this way, or are we going to have it that way? And of course, best case scenario is what I've talked about many times before, is that the human animal is too dynamic. The human animal is cyclical, too dynamic, too cyclical for anything to be set in stone. For there to not be a competition in all areas, economics, government, etc. This is the 200 IQ plus approach to how we, as a race, as a people, will resolve the issue of power and governance and economy and separation of those things, and separation of those things from religion, and offsetting power holders that perpetuate. So there's no need to have a divine entity. There's no need to have a God. There's no need for something to set on top to regulate it all. We can solve this as a people. I have no doubt. If we can walk on the moon, and we would have been walking on Mars by now. If we can do these things, we can solve it. It is a matter of us coming together for white well-being, and that being the prime moral motivator, so that when business owners, when we talk about places like South Africa, for example, where our people built civilization, and then you had this dichotomy of two types of people. And the same thing happened in America as well. The same thing has happened in many places, where you have white people who say, look at these poor folks, let's bring them in and help them out. But then you also have white people who are unscrupulous business owners. Not all business owners, but unscrupulous business owners who say, yes, let's bring them in so that I can fire my white employees and hire these cheaper non-white employees that I don't have to pay all the special protections for, they won't require, etc. And that especially like in the United States now, where the payment to these non-whites is subsidized by our tax dollars, by white tax dollars. So they wrap all of that into their decision. So if we create the morality that serving white well-being is the preeminent moral action, and anything that harms white well-being is the most shameful act, then when those business owners who are unscrupulous, and those people will always be with us, when they go to act in that sort of a way, everyone who works with them, their accountants, the people who work under them, the people who are carrying these things out. There'll be this moral pressure of them to reveal, to undermine, to etc. We will be able to solve these problems of economy, governance, and religion relative to these things, and the separation and the balancing of power. It can be done. It will be done. It's not going to be done now in the kind of systems that we have now. But when I went to this office just to see as a bit of an experiment, I wanted to see, is it actually, from what I've heard from all of these people, is it actually impossible to walk in there as a fit white man and just be outright denied? And it is possible. You can walk in there, and the looks that you get and the time that you're made to wait and looks of the absolute disgust, like, who the hell do you think you are coming in to receive? Well, they had no idea what could have happened to me. They have no idea what kind of state I was in. And then when I finally got back into the office with the social worker, oh, that conversation. I should do a video on that. I haven't talked about that a lot, but I will tell you that the kind of things that were said between her and I guess it's been enough years, it's impossible to track her down and fire her, but I should do a video on that. It's very revelatory. But let's get to your comments. I know I just saw a super chat disappear, so let me jump over to this other screen. It was up for me and now disappeared. So let's see. I had Chris gave a second super chat of 20 Norwegian krona. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Again, not writing anything, but the super chat is most appreciated for the cause of white well-being. We also have Hugh super chatting €5.49, €5.49. I believe it's called cents and euros. If somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Or is it euro cents? So it's €5.49. And writing, keep up the good work. Thank you very much for that. And it looks like it's a lovely picture of a little baby. I can't see it very well on the screen over there, but that's fantastic. We also had JT Smith. Thank you very much, JT, for the super chat of £3, writing, please support white well-being. Thank you very much for that, JT. A good friend of our community, hero in our community, always showing up and doing the Lord's work. Let's see. Did I get American Life? I think I did at $2 and wrote hail. I think I did see that. Okay. Let's jump over here to Chthonic software, and we're going to talk about some of these things. We'll get to your questions. Or Chthonic software. Everybody's got me saying Chthonic now. Could somebody look this up for me? I know I read years ago, many years ago, this word and looked it up. And I'm pretty sure that I recall it's pronounced Chthonic. Will somebody look that up? And let's see once and for all. Everybody around me saying Chthonic. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Chthonic. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Zandrothan says it is sense. Well, thank you very much for that. European Spirits says, what did she say? Well, that'll be the video I made. I will just tell you that essentially she said, in a nutshell, there's no chance in hell. It doesn't matter that I was going to be able to get any sort of benefit. This is before they had any information from me. She essentially said, she's like looking at me like this. She's like, you're fit. She's trying to hold back saying, or not trying, but holding back saying, you're a white guy who's fit. There's no chance. What are you thinking? Even bothering? So I would have loved to have had a camera. It would have been, she was being really honest. And so I wouldn't want to get her in trouble. Maybe if I had filmed it then and then released it now, all these years later, it'd been okay. Lord Protector writes, I have poor eyesight. Could you please tell me, what's that picture on your wall? I can hardly distinguish some alcohol glass. Well, thank you for asking about that, actually. it gives me an opportunity to describe, because it has a lot of meaning for the process of going free for me, and it should as well for all of you. Let me take a quick look over here, make sure I've got everybody over on. No, I don't. And we'll get to the print in one moment. Let's see, over on Entropy. Looks like Arcade came back with another $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Arcade. What I like most about your show and community is that you don't peddle despair. You're pragmatic and honest, but always positive. Exactly, as we should be, as we absolutely should be. And thank you very much for that, Arcade. Some of you know this, some of you don't, but I have worked before at jobs where I was sent to holdings of a community, of a business enterprise, many different types of holdings that had gone into the red. They were no longer profiting, and my purpose was to bring them into the black, make them profitable. So we didn't do that every time. I was successful every time. I didn't do that every time by going in there and saying, well, look, here are all the reasons why it doesn't work. Here are all the reasons why it fails. And there's just too few money, and there's this. No, I went in there and said, how do we win? How do we succeed with the tools that we have available to us? And in every single case, asking myself those questions. And what I've always described myself as, and this comes from my father, who described himself the same way, and he was absolutely the case, a problem solver. So I solve problems, and I've had a lot of success solving problems. That's what we're doing here. We ask ourselves, how do we get over the hurdle? How do we get around, circumvent the challenge? We don't say, here are all the reasons why we can't succeed. That's not how you succeed. You don't give yourself excuses for a way out. So thank you very much for that, Arcade. Absolutely, we're going to stay positive. And I see we do have some questions over on Entropy that I'll speak to as well, and some more on YouTube. Real quickly, I will say, I see we're coming up on 6 o'clock, so we have at least one more hour. I want to get through this news quickly, at least one more hour before the great Poseidon begins his stream. We don't want to miss that. So in this print that you see up on the wall behind me, this is, let me see if I can kind of get my hand around. So this right here, what appears to you as a glass, is actually a translucent white pawn. This is a chess board, and then lying right here at the feet of the white pawn is the black king, the bête noire of the white pawn. So for me, when I saw this print for sale, and it was actually well beyond my means to purchase, and it took a long time in payments, and then the artist, this many years ago, the artist finally took pity on me and knocked some of the final payments off, and it was so I knew that I wasn't part of the community that normally purchases his work. But what you're seeing here in this print is you can see what looks like some orange or red, and here you can see it down here as well. This is the reflection of fire taking place around the chessboard, indicating that there's struggle. It's important to note also that the king is taken, the bête noire is defeated, even though you can see reflected in the pawn's head, right around the pawn, there is still a knight, and I believe that is a rook. So the forces of the bête noire persist even though it is defeated. It also, the other meaning for me was that the conflict was taking place not only in the world around the pawn, but also within the head of the pawn and the reflection. So going free is a struggle that is inside of us first, a conflict that is constant and inside of us first. And then it is also a conflict outside of us. And the print says ultimately that the pawn can win. The pawn can take down the Black King and can win the day, meaning that you, ladies and gentlemen, have the power to be the key, to be the element that we all, each of us pushing in the same direction. You can be that final key that takes down the Black King. And of course, the Black King is not representing a race of people. It's representing the bête noire, the adversary, the anti-white that victimizes us. So thank you very much for that question. We also have Stony over on Entropy, super chatting, $20. Thank you very much for that kind super chat to the cause of white well-being. Our individualism is thwarting our success when compared to families working together. We are becoming renters in our own land. Find like-minded people, pack yourself into a house, save, buy, repeat. Thank you very much for the kind investment and the sagacious words. Absolutely, we are becoming renters in our own land. And we talked about the other day that, I think at least briefly, I believe we did, that I just got word here that Zero Schizo is in the chat. So I wanted to say hello to you, Zero. I have these star-studded sky of white well-being show up during these, and then I end up not seeing many of you, and I apologize for that. So thank you for the alert. Sen526 is here as well. So great to see you as well. So let's see. The question of individualism. Yes, individualism is a severe problem. It's something that is innate to our people. And so we don't have to worry about it going away. We're not suddenly going to become a hive mind, but we need to work on community now. We need to work on strengthening our ties and relying on each other. And 86, or I'm sorry, that just means to throw away this idea of individualism for now. Because in a world of communities, the individual is always defeated. And that is how we as a people are being defeated by these communities that are coming in. You have these, as I was just saying, these non-white, legal and illegal border crossers who come into the country. And this happens all across the West, but specifically in the US. And they're given grants to purchase, not every single one of them, but some of them, enough of them, are given grants. Some of them are given loans. All of them are given tax breaks at our expense to buy and or start businesses. That is how and why you see these groups of border crossers come in, and suddenly a whole industry is owned by them. Well, how did that happen? How did suddenly this entire industry get owned by a particular group of people? Well, it happened because they're being given our tax dollars. This is not a, I would cite the specific, the specific codes, the specific grants. Nothing here is a conspiracy theory. These things are what these what do they call them? I wish I had the note here. The government has a very specific name for these things, like personal, not enrichment, but some sort of name like that is the name. Somebody knows, please put it in the chat. But these empowerment grants or something like this, they're also given by these NGOs to a lot of these border crossers. And of course, many of these NGOs are receiving money from the government, meaning our tax dollars. So it's just another way. It's like with the welfare system, they say, well, here's the amount of money that the border crossers are taking in welfare from your community. But they'll only be looking at the specific distribution of welfare by way of specific avenues, specific taps to those communities. They intentionally ignore the taps that go out to monies intended to go to these communities by way of NGOs and then by way of churches. So the amount of money is quadruple what you think is being sent to these communities. That's why these communities are able to have so many children and pay for it. That's how they're able to, I mean, for God's sakes, we know folks who are, we know folks who are trying to have families, white folks who are trying to have families, and they work, maybe even both, the man and woman work, and they look at their checks and they look at the bills and they're like, good God, there's no way we can afford a second child, no way we can afford a third child. And I'm not talking about the people who have to have the Mercedes in the driveway. I'm talking about regular folks who have humble vehicles and live in humble houses, and they just can't afford another child. And yet on the same street, the non-white border crosser family, maybe, let's just go ahead and say that border crosser family, they're all better looking, they're all have higher IQs, they all are more law abiding, whatever it is. Let's just go ahead and let's just give that, it doesn't matter to the anti-whites, we give that to them. They're better looking, they're more law abiding, they brush their teeth more often than we brush our teeth. Whatever you want to say, I don't care. I still want the well-being for my, I still want well-being for my people. So I don't care how much better they are than us. Fine, they're better than us. I still want white well-being. But somehow on that same street, and of course, you all know I've had so many conversations with folks in private. You all know I'm talking about a lot of you. On the same street, that family is having their 6th kid. And the white couple is scratching their head saying, how are they having their 6th child? They must all be eating nothing but peanut butter. But they're not. They're not. In fact, they drive a nicer car than you do. I can tell you of family members who have gone to the grocery store and the like. They buy their groceries. The border crosser family buys with food stamps and then goes out to an Escalade. In fact, do you all remember, this was, oh boy, a couple of years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a white woman who was anti-white, and she was in the Democrat, voting Democrat, and she was, I think it was in Georgia, and she worked at one of these centers where they distributed these benefits. And she drove like a Tercel, like a Toyota Tercel. And she said these people would come in and this went on for years, and she finally couldn't take it anymore. They would come in Escalades. They would come in Cadillac, all these different, what is it, Audi, they would drive up in. And all of these nice cars they would drive up in to get their food stamps. And not only that, but they would have not knockoffs, but the real bag purse that costs $300 or $500, the real shoes that cost $500, and they're picking up their food stamps. So that's how these folks are able to have their 6th child, while the white couple scratches their head and says, how can we afford a second one? It's not just this whole KR theory. People got too deep into that. There's legitimacy to that, but people got too deep into it. The bottom line is that when you were being fleeced for a percentage of your income that would rattle your teeth if you knew how much in the end was actually being taken from you, you just have none left over to have a family with, of a family that you could provide health care and food for and adequate. I mean, sure, I've seen these people say, well, back in the 20s, people had, even though they had no money, they had 15, 16, 17, 18 kids. Yes, and 3 or 4 of them died from malnutrition. And that's not the answer. It's not producing a giant family that you can't feed and medicate. You have to be able to provide for your family. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Kung Slug writes, to be white, I don't know that you know that I know. I know that you know that I know. We don't need all the fancy words. We have a silent agreement and common in between us. Indeed, absolutely, I agree with that. And thank you for being here, brother. Let's see, we got some super chats. Arch Nemesis super chatting with $20. Thank you very much. Brother, I will make it go far. Rest assured, it will inflict grievous injury on the ideas of anti-whiteism. MDZ super chatting with €5. Thank you very much. and writing, what is your opinion on Christianity and the positive or negative effects it has or had, if any, on white well-being? Very big complex there, or complex question there, MDZ. Could you please tag me, and maybe I could give a general answer. Let me write that down really quick so that I can be sure to say something about Christianity before we get out, because there's an issue there I want to speak to, but I want to read a bunch of these. Bill Ahura, hey, how's it going? Good to see you, brother. $5. Jason, I tried to send a very mild super chat, and it said I needed to edit it and wouldn't allow it. I copied it and can show you in stream. Okay, do that, brother. I will tag me, and if you have already done it, please do it again, because I've got a lot of messages that I'm trying to see here. We have, let's see, I think JK160. I think somebody just dropped off. I'll have to check the other screen. JK160 super chatting with $10. Thank you very much, brother, for the $10 investment. The border crossers don't officially get married, so they can claim the woman is single, so the birth will be covered under Medicaid, among other benefits. All of my benefits have been more than 5,000. All my births, rather, I'm sorry, have been more than 5,000. Exactly. That's actually a great point, JK160, that there are all of these ways, there are all of these means by which there's a whole cottage industry that teaches the border crossers, legal and illegal, this is what you say, this is what you do, this is whether it's in the US or Europe or what have you. These are the ways you get around these lax systems that are in place and almost entirely staffed with anti-whites who couldn't care about applying the rule of law so that it benefits and protects the white founding stock of the country. They more than happily will even lead the border crossers into an answer that will enable them to just fleece the founding stock for another. So this idea, don't get married, just live together, and then they'll be able to get their babies delivered by way of Medicaid. And here this JK is saying that all of the births of his children have been more than $5,000. Now, if you are a middle-class person in the United States, in most areas, that is going to be an extremely expensive undertaking. So thank you very much for the kind super chat. Simon JJ super chatting with 20 pounds. Thank you, Jason. You are central to white well-being. Always feel energized after the streams. Well, thank you very much, Simon. And thank you for the kind super chat of 20 pounds. I always love seeing that symbol, since that and the euro, because it's always worth more than my US dollars that are going down the toilet. Let me move down this chat a little bit, and then we'll get, let's see. Okay, the chat is jumping on me, folks, so it looks like, see. Chris with 20 Norwegian Corona, back again. That might be the third time. Thank you very much for the kind super chats today, and asking me about my opinion on Commander Rockwell. Commander Rockwell, as he is known by many, lived not too far from where I live. I lived in Arlington, or at least he did for at some point in some time. And I feel the same way about Rockwell as I do about anybody who has served white well-being. I endorse, whether it's Rockwell or anyone else, I endorse everyone who everyone's actions who serves white well-being when those actions and statements are in keeping with my morality. If those statements and actions are not keeping with my morality or my what I articulate here in Going Free and the cause for white well-being, where they diverge, then there isn't agreement, and I'm not endorsing them. Now, that is just for you all to know and understand, because we all know the anti-whites will lie. We all know that they're going to misrepresent me. So I'm not saying that for them. I'm just saying that for clarity for all of you. The anti-whites will say, I said a similar thing about Pierce. And they'll take the ugliest thing that Pierce said, the ugliest thing that Rockwell said, and they'll say, Jason endorsed these people. This is a form of divide and conquer, ladies and gentlemen, and you cannot allow our victimizers to do it anymore. See, the way this works as divide and conquer is they make you so afraid to lock arms with any single person out there because they are going to hold you responsible for anything that person has ever said or ever done in the totality of that person's life. Well, that, of course, is as underhanded as you could possibly get and totally to be expected by creatures with leathern wings like anti-whites. So we will not allow them to divide and not here. If Rockwell or Pierce were alive today, they would be allowed to lock arms with me when we are standing up for white well-being the way that we do here in Going Free. Now, if they want to do or talk about or say other things outside of that, then that is for them to do. But the anti-whites are not going to be allowed to divide and conquer Jason Kuna from his allies and his friends. And you all should feel this way as well. It's a very empowering thing. You are not responsible for everything that I have ever said or done, or that Rockwell has ever said or done, or William Luther Pierce has ever said or done. That is an underhanded, unscrupulous, criminal, anti-white trick to prevent you from standing with those who otherwise would stand with you in a shield wall to protect our little white boys and girls. So don't allow them to do that, and I'm not going to allow them to do that. Thank you very much for that, Chris. Otherwise, Rockwell was, I don't know a lot, but he was, what I saw, he was a funny guy. He was a very talented artist. He's apparently extremely intelligent person as well. So those are my opinions on Rockwell. Robert, super chatting with $10. Thank you very much for that. Didn't write anything, but the $10 is all the words you need to write, my good friend, because they will go to a good cause. Pragmatic Women Exist. Great to see you. By the way, Pragmatic Women Exist. I think you sent me some writing, and I think we were having a conversation over on Gab. Is that right? Perhaps. Anyhow, I wanted, the Gab went down. I haven't been able to get back to you to tell you that I will be having a look first chance I get. Pragmatic Women Exist, writing with $5. Thank you very much. And saying educating our females about our cause is imperative. They are joining the wrong side due to unawareness, ignorance. They need to be shown they are supported, indeed. And they are supported here in the cause of white well-being, as are you in the good work that you are doing. So very happy to have you here. No fighting in the chat, indeed. I stand behind Sedinsky's Lawson. If he's handling any issues, we can have professional and mature disagreements that are handled respectfully. That's fine. But where things get ugly and where people are saying things that could get the channel undermined, then we take action. Double Baked in Detroit, to become human, androids are essentially a sci-fi depiction of Black Lives Matter. Not sure what that means. Get back at me with another tag and give me some more input. Shlomo says, sorry, can't super chat. Raising kids is expensive. Will you ever run for office? I seriously am considering running for office. Please put your money to your children and your family. Raise them in love and pride in our people. And that will do more than I could possibly do for them. So please do that. And yes, I may well run for office or offices in the future. The purpose is almost assuredly, I can say now, not to win office, because the odds are zero. I mean, quite frankly, perhaps we could find a unique situation, but the odds are virtually zero. The purpose would be to educate the masses and to bring more people to going free. Now, when I say educate people, how does that differ from what has gone before when it comes to education? Does anybody know? The way it differs is that we are sharing this curative contagion. So I would be sharing the curative contagion of going free, which means that when I touch you, when I get up on that lectern and I speak to the people, I touch them, I lay hands on them with a curative contagion. And then they begin to go free. And then everyone they lay hands on, they talk to, it's a metaphor, they then begin to go free. That is the big difference. I'm not going to run for an office to get up there, as has been done in the past. I've argued against this so many times, but as has been done in the past, and get up there and say, look at the crime statistics, look at all the biological differences, look at that does nothing. That does nothing, because the anti-whites, while we or people who care about white well-being, or at least appear to some degree or another, have been talking about really deep subjects, have been really philosophizing about things and poring over data about differences in crime and etc. While we've been doing these really profound things, the anti-whites have been winning. They have been formulating plans to victory, and they have been winning battle after battle after battle. And so what going free does is it does the exact same thing by undermining the anti-whites. We here are poring over the ways, not philosophizing, not being some philosophaster, but poring over the pragmatic means by which we take back the minds and souls of our people. And particularly in a way, and this is what has been my focus for a great many years now, particularly in a way that enables each of those individuals to then spread it themselves. That is the big difference. That is how we take back our civilization. So let's see, we have over on Entropy, we have quite a few super chats over on Entropy. I got to get to these. Let's see. Arcade back with a $3 super chat. Have you ever had a conversation with a public people who agree with you but don't want it known? If so, how do you feel about those situations? I have had, thank you very much for the question and the super chat. I have had conversations with people who work in the public eye. In fact, someone in the public eye that most of you see probably at minimum a couple times a month, and agree with us, and they're not going to say so because of the retaliation by anti-whites, because of the condemnation, because of the attacks for the heresy. So they're not going to say. Now, how do I feel about it? It depends. The scenario depends. If there is someone who could, or if someone is in a role that they could shunt, they could vector people in a direction where I can catch them, then I say, go for it. We have to be strategists. Now that is different, quite a bit different. So don't look superficially, quite a bit different from what conservatives and cuckservatives and civnats and all the kinds of what they talk about doing. There's a big difference between people who are dedicated to winning a war saying, if we're going to win this war, then we have to make the enemy believe that we have tanks over on that hill over there. So let's put up some inflatable tanks so that they think that that hill is taken, and that they're going to make this other decision to come down this valley where we can ambush them. If that's our motivation, then putting up the inflatable tanks is a legitimate maneuver to win the war. What happens with cuckservatives, what happens with conservatives, I guess in general, civ-nats, they put up the inflatable tanks and they never have any intention of winning the war. They tell you, we're just going to do this because we've got a plan, but then there's no fruits. And what does that speak to? That speaks to something I tell you all regularly, that you do not determine whether you like No White Guilt or Tommy Robinson or Mark Collette or anybody else based on some history. You say, I endorse this guy or this woman because right now he or she is doing something that is serving white well-being. You all will be the ones, if you adopt this method, will be the ones who prevent the moneyed anti-whites from coming in behind the scenes and paying off people who are either in leadership or making kings of people. So thank you for that. Roy Danton over on Entropy, phones blowing up, ladies and gentlemen. We have so many people with us today. And we have so many good questions. I don't know how we're going to. We might not be able to get off by the time that Poseidon starts, but we'll make it as close as we can. Roy Danton super chatting $50. Thank you so much, Roy. This is over on Entropy. Your generosity, brother. You all know who you are. You most generous folks out there. We cannot thank you enough. All of you, whether you're giving $1, even if it's one Canadian, even if it's one Canadian dollar, all the way up to the biggest super chats. Every bit of it is deeply appreciated. Thank you very much, Roy. Roy writes, I tried to use your lexicon on Independence Day. Unfortunately, most people I met in this tourist area were either Chinese, mixed race, or had non-white spouses. But it was a nice exercise anyways. Roy, you speak to something that is very important. So thank you for that. And thank you for doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I teach in Going Free, and again, the second book is nearing completion every day, a little bit closer, is that you have to exercise your ability at using this lexicon and using the dialectics. So get out there. I recommend to do this pseudonymously or to do this with a fake name. If you're online, do it with a fake name. And get into chat boards, get anywhere you can, go on to particularly a conservative or CivNat type of Facebook groups or the like. Get out into these places, exercise your ability at speaking with this lexicon and using these dialectics. By exercising it, you will become proficient at doing it. I know we all, especially in this have it happen now day, it's the same way with working out and losing weight and getting educated. We all want it just some easy way. It doesn't work that way in reality. I will teach you and provide you the tools here, and you'll learn them from other people who are coming up with creative things. And then you go into these environments and you implement them. And then you come back, share with us your testimony. I assume you'll be like many others who have come back to me and said that, hey, Jason, you guys should really, this is why I have to start having the phone calls. And I think we'll do this through Entropy. But these people who write me that have tried these things and their lives have done 180s. It is so remarkable. And it is such proof of concept. This is why I'm so excited about Going Free. This is why I'm so excited about us recapturing our destiny. Because I have people come back to me and say, I have tried this for year after year all my whole life. I've tried this for year after year during my whole life. And now I'm finally trying this Going Free, and it works. And I changed my girlfriend's mind. I changed my boyfriend's mind. I changed my whole family's mind. It's working. It is working. And that's why we just have to keep going. We have to keep going. This is like the businesses that I brought out of the toilet. We just have to keep going, keep applying these tactics, and keep winning. And as it spreads, the context will change. And just like the context change when it comes to business, and then the money goes into the business, context change here, and suddenly it won't take so much bravery at the dinner table next Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving after that, because it's not going to be just you who cares about white well-being, but it's going to be 4 of the 8 at the table, or 7 of the 12 at the table or whatever that are all going to say, yeah, that argument really does make sense. It's totally legitimate. And I side with you there. And those ones who don't want to side with you, they are the ones who are going to look immoral. And so that is where you want to be. You want to get up from that table. You want to get up from that the birthday party counter and pull the little hat off your head with a big grin on your face, knowing that you are the one who is on the moral high ground, and that anti-white is over there stewing like a pile of something. Edgar Allen super chatting over on Entropy, $25. Thank you very much for the kind super chat, good sir. Writing, utilize when history comes up in conversation. Apt example. One people being taxed for the benefit of another people was referred to as tribute by our ancestors. Very well put indeed. And we do bear the inordinate weight and burden of the tax rolls, and that money is not going into our communities. It is inordinately going to the non-white communities. A fact, ladies and gentlemen. So since they are using per capita far more than we are using per capita, we are, as Edgar Allan brilliantly points out, paying tribute. And why are we paying tribute? Not because we have a reason to, not because we are we're doing it to make amends for something that we've done wrong, as if that makes any sense anyhow. If you can't hold the brother of a non-white rapist who raped a white woman this morning, if you can't hold him responsible for the rape to any degree, you can't hold me or you responsible for some white person who may even have been fictitious 100 or 500 years ago for having done something or to someone who also is not alive anymore today. So it's just the anti-whiteism functioning to inflict harm on us. And these double standards appear when you don't realize what the ultimate objective is. The double standards in reality are just tools to reach the same goal. For conservatives and civnats, for them, it is this irreconcilable, impossible thing to understand. But for us, it's not, because we understand what is really happening. So thank you very much for that, Edgar Allan. Now we have some super chats by way of the familiar alternative. Let's see. We have Slaughters super chatting with $5. Thank you very much. When you see a non-SJW calling out anti-whites, a non-SJW, so a social justice. So are you saying that somebody who is not anti-white and who calls out anti-whites, get in their comments section linking no white guilt? Okay, right. When somebody, as Slaughters is saying here, thank you very much for the super chat, and thank you very much for the sagacious thought here in your comment. What he's saying here is, I assume it's a he, Slaughters. If I'm wrong, I apologize. And what he's saying is, if you see someone calling out the anti-whites, now what's important is they don't have to be just being called anti-whites. They might be calling them Democrats. They might be calling them liberals, progressives, the names they want to be called by, foolishly. If they are calling any of these people out, then what Slaughters is saying, share my link. Get right to these people. Use some of what you've learned here and share it with them and get my information to them. Let's get them over here. You know very well that the anti-whites are undermining the hell out of the channel and on all of the platforms that I'm on. We talked, I had a giant list, and it was only a portion of all the places that I've been censored from and off of. And so, you know, they're doing everything they can to silence not just me, but going free. They don't want you to go free. Look at how these writers, when they wanted to slander me, they can't talk about going free for what it actually is, could they? They had to say, oh, what he actually means is, and then insert the misrepresentation. They can't talk about what it actually is because they know that talentless typist was trembling over his keyboard when he was thinking and typing about going free, because he knew that white people are going to like that. White people are going to like getting this gorilla off their back, this monkey off of their back. They're going to like getting rid of it. They're going to like getting rid of the white guilt. They're going to like feeling the access to their true physical, mental, and spiritual potentials by getting rid of all of these mean pathogens with which they are infected. So very, very well said. Sloths. Then we have Final Blossom donated $10 to the cause of white well-being by way of the familiar alternative. And it says, thank you for your work. Thank you very much for writing that, Final Blossom. That is most kind of you. Thank you for being here. Sin super chatted $5. Hail our people, brother. Indeed. Hail our people, Sin. Thank you for the kind investment. And then we have Jason's shirt back with $2. We also have a bunch of questions coming in over in Entropy I want to be sure to answer as well. Jason's shirt, super chatting with $2, says, gonna play the devil's advocate again, and says, how can I, meaning no white guilt, how can I claim that the regime only cares about the suffering of non-white children when the U.S. has mercilessly murdered over 1 million of them around the world since World War II? Well, my position is that there shouldn't be war, but we will defend ourselves by whatever means necessary. So I will say that and continue to say that there shouldn't be war. There shouldn't be any children being murdered by war anywhere on planet Earth. We should be above this. We should be able to negotiate and a guarantee that we will defend ourselves by any and every means necessary, because we acknowledge that we live in the real world, in the jungle. So, having said that, how can I say that the regime cares about, I think you wrote only cares about non-white children? Only cares about the suffering of non-white children. You're making a mistake in your question. And that is that you are assuming that the anti-white pretext is something more than a pretext. The concern for non-white people in general, non-white children specifically, is only of value to anti-whites, whether they are non-white or white, is only of interest to them when it can inflict harm on Western kind and Western civilization. So you're making the same mistake that is made by a conservative, for example. We know that the objective of the anti-whites is to inflict harm on Western kind and Western civilization. If a black guy, and we happen to know one Jesse Lee Peterson, if he says things that interfere with anti-white objectives, does his opinion still carry special weight as a member of what the anti-whites would call a persecuted and long-suffering and et cetera group? No, his opinion no longer matters. And in fact, he is slandered as the same anti-white slurs that they would use to describe me. That reveals that this whole idea of concern for non-white people or non-white children, etc., is only useful insofar as it can harm Western kind and Western civilization. You talk about non-white people in Vietnam or Iraq or what have you, that have died as a consequence. This is a completely different matter. You're now comparing apples and oranges. You've conflated two things, which is usually done by anti-whites in argumentation. You've conflated two things that are totally different to try to make a point about the first thing. Now, what's happening in these other instances around the world is anti-white elites pursuing their objectives around the globe, which are varied, and there are too many cases to talk about. Pursuing those objectives around the world, use the power of the Western countries, all of them now, that they now dominate, as proxies to achieve those objectives. I'm not talking about one specific group of anti-whites. I'm not talking about one specific country. I'm talking about anti-white elites. There are a great many of them. They have global objectives, and they use Western civilization as proxy power to achieve those objectives, whatever those objectives might be. And if that means killing millions, it's, for example, what happened in Iraq, millions of non-white children there, Iraqi children, they will do it without batting an eye. Whereas somebody like me, somebody like you all out there, would never do something so monstrous. So that's the big difference. You are, first of all, you're taking the anti-white pretext at face value, error. You're then conflating global objectives of anti-whites with the internal endeavors of anti-whites in a Western country to achieve and that is another, to achieve an objective in the argument. So two big errors there. That's how you're coming to the erroneous conclusion. I understand that this can be a very complex, all of this is extremely complex because it is human civilization. It's like trying to understand the economy. It's something that is beyond the individual. And certainly, you know, the lower the IQ the person, the harder it is to solve the riddle of. So thank you very much for the $2 super chat. I will make it go far in the undermining of anti-whites. So let me check back really quick and see if we have, there was Edgar Allan, because I knew I had some folks drop off on over here on YouTube, and I want to make sure I get everybody. I also want to make sure I get some of these other questions. I see Yonash is with us again. Hello, just arrived. What have I missed? We're just saving the white race. Sedensky writes, I'd be interested to know your thought on Roosh. Well, we're kind of running slim on time. Maybe we will. Overall, it's not not profoundly positive. I realize now that he's saying that he has come away from teaching men how to pick up effectively white women and just have sex with them. That, of course, is objectionable as all hell. There aren't, and if you're a young man out there, there are no things you can say. There are no turns of phrases or ways that you can behave or mistreatment of a woman that is going to make her desire you. That is all lies. A lot of people sell these lies and make themselves rich, earn themselves much more money in a week than I make in a year. What these techniques ultimately are doing and where they ultimately derive from, whether they were studied for this purpose or it's just the natural result of gravity always pulls things downhill. And so you're going to end up with the same or similar conclusion, is that you are taught on how to find a woman who is in a weakened state and then to prey upon that woman. And that, my friends, is despicable. Do not study on how to identify a mark like in sales. And that's where it's also taught. how to identify somebody in a vulnerable state, and then go to that person with some cruelty, with some confusing signals, with all of this garbage. This is all just, it's all just sales. It's all just ways on how to fleece a mark. And if that is the kind of person you are, you're definitely not welcome in my sphere, male or female. So if you're a young man, be a gentleman. Don't go out there looking for a woman whose father has just died, or a woman whose father beat her and never loved her, and so now she's looking for dad. Don't do that. Go out and take advantage of some person just to have sex with. I mean, you are, if the guys who do that are scum, and the women who do similar things are scum. So be an honorable person. And so I know he's saying that he's come away from that now, but it's just like this, it's this endless thing, and maybe we'll get into it some other time. And if he's, and I give my endorsement if he's moving away from that sort of mentality. I endorse that. Let's see what else we have here. All right. Well, the chat is alive today. Glad to see you all here. I know Poseidon is warming up, so we've got to, I want to make sure we don't. There's Mary Moon, great to see. There's Amanda Scott. Rick is here. Good to see you. There's Mike is here. Prater, I know Prater is sent a super chat, and I will get it on the other screen if I don't see it here. Snow Duchess is here. Good to see you. Ah, $5. Thank you, Prater. White people are not born simply to exist in a perpetual state of self-sacrifice for the benefit of those who care nothing for us. Love your folk. Brilliantly written. Brilliantly written. Thank you very much for that. That is actually, your words are far more valuable than the donation. So thank you for that, for saying that to the chat. Folks, your ideas, your thoughts are valuable. When you start going through, you'll start seeing things in the world that will be significant insights, things that you were, sometimes people are, and let me just also tell you this, in going free, in the process of going free, if before going free, you had some ideas, you thought something wasn't right, something's, I felt like something was off. You have a blind sight, is what it is, effectively. You're seeing something is there. You can tell, you can feel, but you're not putting these pieces together. And that's because of the mean pathogens that we're helping you neutralize, essentially. So if that is the state you are in, when you begin going free, you're going to have insights that are going to blow your mind, like nothing you've experienced before. And when you have those insights, share those thoughts with the rest of us, because we will help each other go free by doing so. The world is an immensely complex place, far more complex than any single mind or hundreds of minds together can comprehend. So we have to work together this way. Bill O'Hora, back with, I think this is back. No, this is the, no, I think it's a new super chat. $5. Jason, I've put the copy disallowed super chat into the stream about 40 times. I don't think I read that last time on the other super chat. If you want to see it, I'll keep trying. No, don't put it as a super chat. Don't super chat anymore. Thank you very much for your super chats. Thank you, good sir. No, just tag me and tag Sadinsky Lawson, and we'll make sure that I see it here before the end. But thank you very much for your kind super chats. I apologize if it sounded like I meant to super chat it again. Reich says, a pity only 15 minutes left with no white guilt. Well, we might go just a little bit over. I think in the very beginning, Poseidon, I don't think he's talking right away. Mike Hawk says, No white guilt. Mark loved Roosh. Yes, they're good friends, I think. JT Smith. Although I'm not speaking to Mark's opinions of the negative aspects of what I perceive that Roosh has done. I haven't read his books. This is the information that has come to me. So in all fairness to that person, if I've received spurious information, then so be it. But these have been from reputable people. If they had not been from reputable people, I would not have repeated the statements. But I don't know Mark's opinions on the absolutely ignoble admonitions, encouragement, the things that Roosh taught people. I don't know. I'm not saying that Mark endorsed. I'm not going to speak for anybody. JT says, well said, Jace. Thank you very much. Canadian writes, no, I guilt. Are you going to have children? About a dozen, if I can find a sane person to have them with. Lord Protector, I'm about to start my teaching career. Any advice on how to enlighten my students without getting fired? It's also quite disheartening to see the demographics of the classroom. I have so many teachers who are in the cause of white well-being, who are going free, who have similar struggles, and we need to do a show on that. We need to do a show on how teachers can speak to their students in a way. And I think, in short, what I can share with you is that you always want to give yourself a defensible position, even if you are going to share a white positive position. Put it in the words of someone else's mouth. Make it something that is eminently defensible and supremely moral. And then you can share that with your students. And if and when an anti-white student objects and tells the parents, and the parents tell the principal or what have you of the school, university, wherever you're at, and you are then hauled before the anti-white tribunal, as the anti-whites are wont to do to us, you can then say, this is exactly what I said. This person said this eminently defensible and moral position, and I shared it as a juxtaposition, for example, to this other position. So the curricula that you have supplied says I have to teach X, Y, and Z. I'm teaching X, Y, and Z, and I wanted to show the opposite of this coin for, and then fill in the blank. You can say it's for comprehension, it's for understanding, it's for whatever. But if you're creative, and I really think you should take the time to do this for the good of your children that you'll be teaching, certainly the white children. But you also, it's a good idea to disabuse the non-white children of these ideas that they have been oppressed by white people throughout the totality of their people's existence, because that notion in their heads is what makes them anti-white. Well, it feeds their anti-whiteism of the jealousy and the envy. So disabuse them, detonate these anti-white ideas, and it will also empower the dynamic between the students, whatever race they are, who are not anti-white, and the students, whatever race they are, who are anti-white. So when they have their discussions, they'll say, but teacher thus and such noted X, Y, and Z. That will be powerful when it comes to your students. I just had somebody write a joke to me. So let's see. So Billahor says he'll put it in the live stream. Fantastic. Let's see. I missed some over here. Oh, maybe I didn't. Did I mention Robert's super chat of $10? Oh, let me refresh that screen. Somebody go over to Poseidon's stream and tell him to hang on when he gets started. Somebody says, we're almost done. Just tell them we're almost done over here. And you all we're just having such a great show that I had absolutely intended to be done by the time that he got started. Machiavelli sucks. Super chatting with $1.99. What's your favorite sports rifle? Oh, that's a good one. How am I going to decide a favorite? I'll get back to you on that one. I have to think about what would be my favorite. There's a lot of things to consider in that question. We'll get back with that one. But thank you very much for the question in the super chat. Okay, Smoking Goat says Poseidon has a long roll-in. Well, good. That means we won't be interrupting our good friend over there. That we do not want to do. Christopher, did you see that John Mark video hit 1 million views? What are your thoughts? I did not see that. That is remarkable. What was it on? By the way, did anybody get back to me on Thonic and its pronunciation? We've had so many good questions. We're having such a great conversation here today. And everybody around me keeps saying chthonic. And I know I read it years ago, many years ago. I think it was in a poem. And I looked it up because I thought, what the heck is this? And I thought it was, recall it saying thonic as the proper pronunciation. Okay, we're going to look over here to entropy, but I got to tell you something before we get to some of these questions on entropy. We just had a magnificent investment in the cause of white well-being, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely humbling, generous, a princely donation to the cause of white well-being by Final Blossom. Super chatting by way of the familiar alternative, $400 US. $400 US, a princely investment in the cause of white well-being as a super chat. Thank you so much for that. And writing the last donation was just a test. Here's some more toward the cause. God bless you. God bless you for those dollars that will be put to the welfare and the physical, the mental, and spiritual welfare of our people and our children. Please, folks, if we could get a round of applause for Final Blossom. Thank you so much for that most beneficent super chat. And we just had another super chat come in from Jared O. Not writing anything, but the super chat for $4.99. Thank you so much for that kind super chat as well. I see Seaver Hamlin is here. Good to see you. Good. There's Gregory. Phoenix Fire. Great to see you. And there's Roy in the chatty, and there's Jilly Storm, of course. Everyone remembers the great Jilly Storm from her coining of ethno state of mind. And you can't get Jared Taylor to laugh very often. He's a very serious, erudite gentleman. I guess that's what happens when you're able to absorb as much knowledge as my good friend Jared Taylor has absorbed over the years. Is that it's hard to get him to laugh from time to time, and but when he does, he really lets loose. And Jilly Storm did so. Julia, no, I don't think that is the Phoenix Fire who manages the No White Guilt collectibles store. But she came up with the ethno state of mind. I shared that when we had Jared Taylor on the show, and it tickled him. So that was wonderful. Good question. Sadinsky asks, how is the great Dainty Brighton these days? And she's in the background. She's still with us, and we love her dearly, and we look forward to when she can join the conversation again. And Seaver coming in as the cavalry. with the bugle blaring, writing no white guilt. It's chthonic by the sources I can find on the web. So I have been vindicated. Everybody who says chthonic, it's time to stop. It is pronounced chthonic, as I recall. Thank you, good sir. Vindication. And if I had been wrong, I would happily adopt the proper pronunciation, but thank you for that. Right, American Life says, ethno state of mind, outlaw the state of mind right now. Yes, and the reason why, folks, we brought up, it was just an aside, why we brought up the chthonic, because that is the name of the business that is entropy. They are chthonic, C-H-T-H-O-N-I-C. The CH is silent. Delahora says, I answered your question. Was your question about dainty? What was or something else? Well, we got to it, whatever it was. So I'm glad we did. So let's see what we have. We got more super chats coming in. Let me really quick. I'm going to absolutely get to your questions on entropy. We're not going to let that go. And we just had Phoenix Fire 108 super chat $5. There's an article by a Nicholas Powers called "Poor White People Makes Me Happy." Poor white people, quote, "Poor white people makes me happy," close quote. Could you do a breakdown of this at some time? I will. That sounds like a really wretched piece of garbage, a poor excuse for a human being. And this Nicholas Powers, if this article is not just tongue-in-cheek or something of this, if this is a genuine sentiment, shame on this person. How despicable. A non-white, a poor person suffers no less than a poor non-white person. There's white student transmission. Hey, great to see you, brother. Very Fake News is here as well. See, the stars are peeking through the night clouds, ladies and gentlemen. So things are heating up, and so when we're done, it's going to be all over for Poseidon. He's going to have a great show. Everybody can just head right on over. All right. Let's see. Well, what we wanted to talk about today, and this is why we have to do the minutes, and thank you to so many of you. I wish I had everybody's names lined up here to be able to mention. Next time we get together, I'll make sure to have all of your names together for everyone who has reached out to me and who desires, who has offered to do minutes of these timestamps of these streams so that we could chop them up, the really most valuable pieces, chop them up and share them with people. So thank you all who have offered to do that. So we want to talk about whites don't exist, white erasure. And we're going to go back to my friend Jared Taylor. Okay. Bellahora was asking about Dainty's well-being. Well, thank you very much for asking about our good friend. She is an absolutely beautiful soul. And if you could see wings on a soul, you would see hers. She wouldn't be able to sit in a chair or lie in a bed. So we had this interview, and I'm not going to go through the whole interview. I just want to touch the most important or most powerful point that the hack Fareed had, which he led with. He led with his gambit, his most powerful gambit at the very beginning, when he interviewed the esteemed Jared Taylor. He led with there are no white people position by saying, who's white? Now, when you're talking to a person, whether it's a vague or an anti-white, and they say, who's white? Actually, anybody who's going to say who's white is not just a vague, they're anti-white. When they say who's white, what they're saying, either in total malice or in mostly malice with a hint of innocence, what they are asking or what they're saying is there are no white people. When they say who's white, they're saying there are no white people. That's when you know that you have a devil in front of you, a demon in front of you. This is somebody with a genocidal mindset in front of you that would say there are no white people. But I just wanted to point this out for you. So if you have an anti-white, and this is just a really easy way to handle it. Now, I think it was probably last week I may have said, and this is my sentiment, I've said this before, when an anti-white when anti-whites have said to me, who's really a white person? I've responded by saying, go straight to hell. Because I know what they're doing. I know they're saying there are no white people, and I know why they're saying there are no white people. I know why they're trying to muddy that water and confuse that issue. So I have said to them in response, go straight to hell. You wouldn't do that to anybody else. You can just go straight to hell. I say we exist, and that's all that matters. I say that we're a people, that's all that matters. So why are you so anti-white that you would deny the existence of my people? I've done that to them before. That's effective. But let me tell you something that's a little less confrontational that I've also used in the past and that has been very successful. And that is just to say to the anti-white when they say, who's white? You could say in response, we'll use your definition. And when they say, what do you mean, my definition? Well, you're an anti-white. You're asking who's white, which means that you're effectively saying there are no white people, but you know very well who is white when it comes to things like affirmative action. So we'll use your definition. The people that you would exclude, the people that it's legal to discriminate against across the West. Think about South Africa today. Think about the United States today. The people who it is legal to discriminate against are the white people. We'll just use that definition. Now, Fareed could have said to Jared, okay, but you want some sort of ethno-state, so what would be the definition for your ethno-state? Now, Jared could just respond, you could respond, again, yes, we'll use your definition. All the people that you are legally allowed to discriminate against today. We'll just keep saying that to the person. But you could get creative as well, maintain the position and get creative. You could say, okay, well, the people who are expected to feel guilt for who they are, that group. We'll use your definition, the people who are expected to feel guilt. Why don't a couple of you right now in the chat come up with a few of your own for us? How about the people who are expected to be fewer in order to increase diversity? The people who are excluded from diversity hires. Say that. We'll use anti-white, Mr., Mrs. Anti-white. We'll use your definition. The people who are expected or who can be excluded when you have diversity hires. The people who are excluded when companies, public and private, say that they're going to be diversifying the workforce. The people that you all would get rid of, those are white people. We'll use your definition. That is a very powerful way that you can answer the question by an anti-white of who is white. Do folks see the power in that? Snow Duchess says yes. Thank you, Jason, by Wyatt. Indeed. Great rebuttal. Sifu, yes, thank you. Good response. Yeah, just say to the anti-white, we will use your definition. And then hold that beachhead. Because what they want to do is they want to muddy the water. And you saw this with this hack Fareed. He wants to muddy the water of who is a white person. And I'm going to show you something in just a second that for some of you will blow your minds. But the purpose for the anti-white is just to muddy the waters, to get you to begin to draw the lines. And as soon as you begin drawing the lines, they can then say, well, is that line really placed in the right place? Is that line really placed? Is that line really placed? And the purpose of that is what? The purpose of that is to conclude that there are no white people. That is the purpose of that line of questioning. So just say to them, if you don't want to be confrontational, if you want to teach a quick lesson, and this is something that you can do with somebody who is like a civnat or a conservative, you can say to them, we're going to use the anti-white definition of what's white. Everyone who can be legally discriminated against today, that'll be the definition of white. Everybody who the media applauds the discrimination against, that is the white people. Everybody who is expected to attack their own heritage, those are the white people. Everybody who is expected to feel white guilt, those are the white people. We will use your definition, Mr. or Mrs. Anti-White. Now, here's the other thing that it does that's very powerful, and you might not be thinking about this yet, but it focuses the conversation on the victimization of white people by anti-whites. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how powerful that is? I'm going to repeat it. When you tell the anti-white, we will use your definition of white, it focuses the conversation, the totality of that conversation, on the victimization of white people by anti-whites. And trust me, the anti-white does not want to be on that field. He doesn't want to be talking about how the definition of white people is accessible by way of the victimization of white people. Do you follow the power of that argument? Do you follow the transformative power for people like conservatives? When they hear that argument, they might not consciously think, and it might not be consciously articulated, that we are now talking about the victimization of white people. But the moment you say, we're going to use the definition that is used to victimize white people by way of this legal discrimination, by way of these goals that the companies set for diversity, the moment you begin talking about that, you are the unspoken premise talking about the victimization of white people. Please, I want you all to use this, and I want you to come back to our conversation in the coming weeks and give us your testimony of how it worked when you engaged with folks, anti-whites or vagues, what have you. Come back, let us know how that turned out when you said, we'll use your definition, you anti-white dirtbag. Now, if you want to be more confrontational, if it's going to be a one-off, you're maybe just having a brief back and forth with an anti-white as you walk across campus, you can just say, go straight to hell. Why are you trying to invalidate the existence of my people? Why are you so anti-white that you seek to invalidate the existence of my people? Is it because XYZ? And we'll talk about that in just one moment. But here's the thing that I want to blow your minds, some of you, your minds away with. Fareed says, and this is something I did 2 years ago, I did a video critiquing some person. His name is, I think his name is ContraPoints. And the video, of course, can't be on YouTube because you're not allowed to say anything bad or disagree with a particular group of folks if they have some, I guess, other than usual thoughts about sexuality, and if they have some unusual thoughts or other than usual thoughts about sexuality and you disagree with them, it's pretty much an instant strike, I found in the past. So the video is over on my BitChute, and I think the other platform, it's not coming to mind right now. But this was about 2 years ago, and he did a video where he's saying, oh, there's no white race. Let me show you all of the evidence, the genetic evidence. And of course, he pulls up these flaccid arguments, these absolutely effete arguments from the wanton fallacy that the anti-whites like to drag out like this dead horse that they have. They just drag it out again and they beat it again. Look at this. It's the Lewontin fallacy. Ladies and gentlemen, you can watch that video and then you'll know you'll be stronger if you want to actually talk to the science. He does the same sort of thing. And in that video, one of the ways I defeat his positions handedly is what I'm about to share with you now, because Fareed does the same thing, and anti-whites do this all the time. Fareed says, he asked Jared Taylor if, and this again, this is the pursuit of the question of who's white in order to arrive at the objective that there are no white people, so therefore XYZ, right? Let me make sure we have any questions in the YouTube super chat about this. Bella says, great tactic, Jason. I think I might have read that before. So here's what he says. Fareed asks Taylor if Europeans from Argentina would be allowed in the ethno state. He also says this, and that's quote. By the way, quote, Fareed asks, quote, Europeans from Argentina, would they be allowed into the ethnostate? And then he says, Fareed, the hack, says, quote, there is a lot of intermarriage, a lot of people who look mixed. I've traveled around Latin America. There are a lot of people who look, or parts of Latin America, where you think you are in Europe, close quote. Does anybody see what I'm about to say? I just said the 2 comments. He said more comments like this, the hack Fareed, but I'm just curious if anybody else can see what he revealed before I say it. Brian Manley says he loves Europeans. Says he's white. Okay, yeah, yes, he was saying that. It was pretty preposterous. Fareed, in the beginning of that interview, was saying, he said, well, you know, by many of these standards that he is from the Caucasus, so he's Caucasian, and what else did he say? He said he was in some other group. Of course, now this was just another one of these, by these arbitrary definitions, he fits into X, Y, and Z. Let's look at what he said, and I'll go ahead and reveal it to you now. So some of you, your minds will be blown when you hear this. Fareed says, again, quote, would Europeans from Argentina be included in the ethnostate? And then he said, quote, there's a lot of intermarriage, a lot of people who look mixed. I've traveled around Latin America. There are a lot of people who look, or parts of Latin America, where you think you're in Europe. I'll read this sentence again, and then I'll say it. There is a lot of intermarriage. Does anybody have it yet? Did anybody figure it out? There's a premise in everything he's saying here. When Fareed the hack says there is a lot of intermarriage, he says there is a white race. Do you see the error that these imbeciles make? When they talk about intermarriage, when they talk about looking at a person and not being able to tell whether they're fully white or fully black, or whether they're fully white or fully Hispanic, or maybe they have some white, the premise in their goddamn argument is that there is a white race. Good God. That's how stupid these people are. But they sneak it by you because these are very sophisticated arguments. They have the premise for the defeat of their argument in their position. You cannot have mixed people without people who are not mixed. You cannot go to places in Latin America where you think you are in Europe, Fareed the hack, if there are not European people. So the answer to your question of who's white is all of those people out there that you look at and see white, Fareed, those are the white people. And it's not the person that you look at in the mirror. Because if you, Fareed, went to a place in Latin America and everybody looked like Fareed, you wouldn't say that it looks like Europe. You wouldn't say that you felt like you were in some European country. You would actually say that you feel like you're in India. So do you see the dishonesty, the stupidity, the duplicity, the mendacity, the absolute unscrupulousness of anti-whites? He is saying there is no white race by asking who's white. And in his actual arguments, he's saying that there are mixed people. Therefore, there have to be pure people, or what we could call as close to pure as it can be in genetics. And let me point something out else when it comes to DNA. A lot of people have this idea, and please, everybody go swamp JF and ask him and see if he'll disagree with me or not, tonight or when he airs again. But a lot of people have this idea that different species cannot breed together and produce fertile offspring. Of course that can happen. It's not the norm, but of course it happens. How the hell does humanity have Neanderthal in it? How the hell does humanity have the Denisovan man genetics in them. Of course, different species can breed together and produce fertile offspring. It doesn't always happen. It's not the norm, but it does happen. Okay? So when we're talking about these people, when they're saying who's white, their objective is to say that there is no white race. And so now I saw another super chat come in. Let's see if I can just scan up. Pragmatic women exist, $2. I got to run. Look forward to hearing from you. All right. Thank you very much for that kind super chat. Brazil says Fareed was constantly trying to promote race mixing throughout that interview. Of course he was, with white people. Seeing Red says he acknowledged that Europeans are white. Exactly. The African Music Festival that charged more for whites. I do know about that. Yes, indeed. And I hope to see a lot more of that. Let's all hope. Let's all hope that we see a lot more of these festivals. And I anticipate there will be a lot more of this double standard when it comes to charging and seats. We've already seen it with seats. I mean, it's not like this African Festival was the first one where they charged whites different. That's happened before. But it's also happened with seating. It happens at universities all the time. And I hope it happens more and more in the general public, that we see that whites are pushed to the back. Whites have to pay more, because that will be good for getting their heads out of their asses. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the next thing. We don't want to interfere with Poseidon too much. We have the National Geographic article on skull fragments found in Greece. Have you all heard of that? Elizabeth Holmes, super chatting $2. Imagine if we asked who is black. How absurd. Exactly. There are a lot of ways that my good friend Jared Taylor could have taken on Fareed. Jared's always going to take the most respectable approach, because that's who and what he is. I would have gutted this, metaphorically speaking. I would have metaphorically gutted this hack Fareed by pointing out the stupidity of his question, because the premise for the defeat of his question is in his own argument. And then I would point out why he endeavors to make me and everyone else believe that there is no white race. But let's get on to this European skulls thing, because I want to get you on over, all you good people on over to our good friend Poseidon. Lord Protector writes, thanks, I'll be waiting for that show on academia. I will first try giving white kids ammunition arguments to win debates, even when called racists by their classmates. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for writing that. Okay, let's see. Let's get on to this fragments, and then I'll get to these final super chats, and we'll get to these questions, and we'll get on over to Poseidon as a team, everyone. So National Geographic, there is a skull that was found in Greece. And what I want to say about this is particularly what is being said in the National Geographic article. I saw one quote purported to be from this article, when it will be published soon. And I want to say this. You are going to see thousands, and there are, every day there are, or every year and year after year, there are thousands of discoveries that are made by scientists in different fields, okay? Now, when those discoveries can be lied about, when they can be bent, when they can be manipulated, when the data can be massaged in such a way that it will bolster the anti-white narrative, then the world will be told about the discovery, and it will be big news. They'll write it in the sky, they'll lie about it, and then they hope that you won't find out the truth later, okay? That is going to happen for the totality of your... Please tell your children this too. Please tell your children. Let's put an end to this. Oh, there's been another discovery, and it means there's no white people. There's been another discovery, and it means... So please, tell the young ones this as well. Now, when scientists in different fields come across evidence that will undermine the anti-white narrative, they absolutely can't massage it, they can't bend it, they can't make it mean something other than it means, they will bury that news underfoot. And then if folks like me, if folks like you find out about it, we'll try to share it with people. but otherwise it will be buried underfoot. You will never hear about it. So I have I mean, it's to the point now. There are so many anti-whites in academia, dominating the news and entertainment media, that this is the norm and has been for a long time. This is the reality. Let me tell you the reality. It sounds like a joke, and maybe you'll laugh, but it is a sad reality. If tomorrow a skeleton of a human being, a white man, they can tell by the skull, a skeleton of a white man is found in Iceland, 500,000 years older than any other human skeleton on Earth. Do you know what the scientists will say? The scientists will say, they're not going to say, Jesus, humanity started in Iceland. Or they're not going to say, well, maybe humanity started actually in different places at the same time, and they had some common ancestor, so that's why they're so different. But since different species can think about the Denisovan man, since different species can come together and reproduce for offspring, maybe that's what's happening with these different races. Maybe they're actually different species that are able to reproduce together, that they have some common ancestor, though. Just as we've seen with other types of animals with a common ancestor. Think about how many things look like your common dog, and they don't all have the same ancestor. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. So they're not going to come to that conclusion. They're not going to conclude that humanity started in Iceland and then spread out, even though the skeleton that for this intellectual exercise, the skeleton that they find is 500,000 years older than anything else on planet Earth they find up in Iceland. No, you know what they'll say? Wow, humanity came out of Africa a lot earlier than we thought. That's what these lying bastards would say. And then you know what they would do? They would make a exhibit at the museum, maybe run a little commercial on your TV that shows some black African with a leather shield and war paint or something showing up at the shores of Iceland. And they would say, this happened obviously a little bit longer than 500,000 years before all of the other skeletons we found, because now we found a skeleton up there in Iceland, and we all know that we all XYZ. Okay? So that is the kind of people that you're dealing with. So let me just read. Looks like I just had a super chat come in. American Life 7022, $5. Thank you very much for the kind super chat. Jason, have you given any thought to the Solutrean hypothesis? Have you heard of the Lovelock Cave in Nevada? Okay, these I have in the cave in Oregon. Yes, the Solutrean hypothesis is not a hypothesis. It is a fact. There is evidence. There are white skulls and skeletons and spear points in the Americas. This is just a scientific fact. Your argument is not with me. You can go right now, everyone listening, including the anti-whites that are monitoring the stream and the channel, you can go right now and you can investigate. It's at the Smithsonian. There is a carving in Washington, D.C. There's a carving on bone found in Florida that is connected to the white peoples of Europe. There is at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. You look it up. It's not me making this claim. You go to the Smithsonian and you look it up for yourself. You will find at the Smithsonian that there are spear points of the exact same design found in Virginia that were made in southern France, roughly, that were made with the same stone quarried in southern France. So you go to Smithsonian. I'm not saying that this is true. Smithsonian is saying this is true, okay? Not no white guilt, because the anti-whites will say this is a conspiracy theory. So I'm not saying this. The Smithsonian is saying that this evidence is real. The Smithsonian is saying that it's the same stone. All right, so You cannot come for me for conspiracy theory. I'm telling you what the Smithsonian has told all of us. So you can go look there. My opinion is, I'm not even sharing my opinion about what took place relative to the peoples coming here. I'm just relaying what the scientists have said. So I want to read what this supposed scientist said from Nat Geo, and this is supposed to be in the article. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. You're really going to dig this. Quote, and this is supposed to be a mature adult working in a scientific field. Quote, to me, the new results from DNA are undermining the nationalist paradigm. Well, let me see if first if I can find. Okay, the thing here, I don't have the note here, is that these fragments found in Greece put humanity there earlier than suspected. All right. So it says here, quote, to me, the new results from DNA are undermining the nationalist paradigm that we have always lived here and not mixed with other people. There's no such thing as a Dane or a Swede or a German. We're all Russians or all Africans. That is what a supposed scientist, an individual pretending, I guess, to be a scientist, said an individual pretending to be a mature adult had to say about the findings that put humanity in Greece earlier than previously believed. That therefore there are no Danish or Swedish or German people. We're all just Africans somehow. So that again is to say, and the way this connects to the Jared Taylor interview, that again is to say that there are no white people. Do you see how that works? Do you see how these two things come together, lace together? In both cases, the anti-whites are saying there are no white people, and therefore, we'll get to that in 1 second. So my question to you is, and this is just a little thought experiment, if we were to find a group of human beings in a faraway land, in a valley somewhere, say, and they were like us in every single way, except they had like a slight bulge on their head, or a slight couple bulges that ran across the top of their forehead. Very minor, hard to even see. In every way they were like this, but all of them had these like little bumps in their skull that ran across the top of their forehead. Would that be something new? Could we say that that's something new? It's a thing. It exists. It's different from the rest of humanity. Would we say that? Of course we would. Of course we would say it's new. People might call them, crowned human beings or something like that. They might say these are the new human beings that we found, and we're going to call them crowned human beings because of these bumps they have across, these tiny insignificant bumps across the tops of their forehead. They would say these are crowned human beings, and they are something different from the rest of us because the rest of us don't have those crowns going across the top of our foreheads. Now, how much sense would it make for someone then to say, no, they're not different at all? Because you see, even though what you have in front of you today is very different, if we go far enough back in time, the crowned human beings don't exist. They're just like the rest of us. So really, there are no crowned human beings, even though you see something very distinct in front of you today. It would make no sense. It makes even less sense to say that there's no difference between black and white, because there are far more differences between the races of man than a couple bumps across a forehead, ladies and gentlemen. Far more differences. So I will give to you the MC that I've shared before. It is not the similarities that make us the same. It is the differences that make us different. It is not the similarities that make us the same. It's the differences that make us different. What matters is what is here today. What matters is what we see today. Not what can be said what happened so many thousands of years ago. Because if we go back far enough, according to their theories of evolution, which I'm not saying is mine or not mine, but according to their own theories that they use, according to their own theories, if we go back far enough, there are no elephants, there are no birds, there are no tigers, there are no people, because we are all single-celled organisms. So you see how asinine that is. So the question then is, why does a person say or endeavor to get you to believe, endeavor to get the population to believe that there are no white people? Why would somebody do that? Does anybody know? Does anybody have an opinion? Amy writes with $2, please check out Asha Logos. Thank you for all your work. I know of that individual, and probably he'll appear on one of the shows at some point. So thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat as well. Okay. If anybody is on Entropy as well, will they let me know if Entropy is still working? Because at some point it stopped working on the last stream. Okay, so here's the reason why. Right, Sifu. Very good. Andre says to dehumanize them so they can commit more crimes against them. Absolutely. Sifu says if we don't exist, there's nothing to protect. Exactly. Seeing red, white erasure. Perfect. Justin, because they are anti-white. Absolutely. Absolutely. You all are 100% correct. All of that is true. All of that and more. If there are no white people, you, white person, have nothing to protect. If there are no white people, you, white people as a group, you Westmen, you have nothing to rally around and to defend. If there are no white people, and this is something that people rarely think about, the anti-white is able to act against us, to inflict injury against us, because he has named himself a victim of circumstance. Really, ultimately, the anti-white wants to punish Western kind, and you as the avatar for all of Western kind, for the feelings of inferiority that Western kind inspires in him. This is true for non-white and white anti-whites. That's the real motivation. Since they call themselves the victim, they gain the right of self-defense. And for a great many of them, that means that they can inflict any amount of injury onto you, the avatar, white man, white woman, for all of Western kind, because they are acting out as the victim in self-defense. They've named themselves the victim, and they now have the right of self-defense. But for some anti-whites, there's still a little compunction there. There's still a tiny bit of compunction. They still think, you know what? Boy, we're being really, especially the white ones, especially white anti-whites. They think we're really being unfair to these people in the way that we treat them relative to the other non-white groups. And as we grow in strength and in numbers against the anti-whites, there will be more white people who will begin to have compunction over treating us poorly relative to the other non-whites, or relative to non-whites. So by making the argument that white people don't exist, they remove that compunction. They say, these people don't even really exist. I'm not really harming a group of people because that group of people really isn't even there. So do you see how that also works to the benefit of anti-whites when they make the argument that there are no white people? So when you are up against somebody who says who's white, or there are no white people, particularly the latter, you are up against somebody who is a monster, who knows damn well and good that there are white people, and who are making the argument that there are no white people to potentially relieve themselves of some of the guilty feelings for the harm they inflict, but absolutely making the argument to be able to inflict harm on you in a way that you are not defending yourself, in a way that they can get away with, in a way that our community continues to flounder like it does. Our people continues to flounder like it does without a single shield up in defense of ourselves and our posterity. Keep that in mind the next time an anti-white says to you, who are the whites? Who's Western kind? Who are the Jews, ladies and gentlemen? Who are the blacks? Who are the Asians? If anyone else made that statement or asked that question of anyone in any forum, the anti-whites would scream to high heaven that that was the beginning of genocide. And I say to you right now, when the anti-whites say there are no white people, or they ask, and it's framed as a statement, they ask who's white, they too have genocide on their mind. They too have the desire to inflict harm on you. So let's get to this quickly so we can get over to Poseidon. I want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to thank my mods, everybody who has been watching and taking care of things in the chat. There's Sean Alexander. Good to see you, brother. So let's see here. Now we have, I just want to mention again that Final Blossom, an absolutely princely sum of a super chat, $400. My heart goes out to you. Thank you so much. Misty asked, does Jason like girls with brown eyes? I think all white women are beautiful. Of all of their hues of eye color, hair color, shades of our skin, it is all stunningly beautiful. Our heterogeneity is a great music and blessing of our people. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen. All of our variety is a beautiful thing. We should embrace every single element of that variety. That is what we do here. We love it. It's beautiful. And with the entrance of every non-white person into our midst, whether it is your community center or your classroom or your country, we become less diverse. We become more monochromatic in appearance. There is nothing less diverse in appearance than a non-white country. So this idea of diversity is an idea that just means it's just an anti-white mean pathogen. That means fewer white people. It is an attack on you. It is diversity perversity. It means the end of Western kind. James Zimmerman super chatting $20, not writing anything, but saying a lot with that $20. Thank you, my good friend. So let's see who else we have here. Coming to the end to wrap up. If somebody could get over to Poseidon and tell him that I'm wrapping up. I don't want to step on my good friend's toes. So let's see. We have Seeing Red, super chatted $10 by way of the familiar alternative. Nice to catch the show on this sunny afternoon. Always a treat. Hail victory. Well, thank you very much, Seeing Red. I appreciate that investment in our people, and thank you for being here and a friend of the community. Slots, super chatting back again after super chatting a little earlier in the show. This time super chatting with $42. 42 white baby saving dollars. Thank you very much for coming back with another super chat. And let's see what you wrote. All agree media blackwashing crime by reporting the truth is racist, targeting blacks racially, and causing suffering. Media openly whitewashes, skin lightens any mixed race people, any mixed race perpetrator, then saying whites aren't being racially attacked in media. Well, exactly. This is a great point that Slots makes here with his kind super chat of $42. They say that reporting, what he's saying here is that reporting on the crimes of non-whites harms their community. I remember when their communities, and therefore they're not going to report the crimes. But the anti-whites willingly will harm our community by, you remember, what's his name, the Hispanic guy who was called white after he killed Trayvon, or shot Trayvon when Trayvon was beating him to death. And everybody believed him to be and was referring to him as white. Yes, they will lighten up the skin, etc., of the perpetrators of crimes, etc., and they also magnify and they tell the story every time round the world of the crimes of white people and demonize our entire community for doing so, or by doing so. So that's a brilliant point. Thank you very much for making that point, and for the kind super chat. So let's see. I want to make sure also I didn't miss George Zimmerman. That's right, Julie. Thank you very much for that. I want to make sure, and I'm going to get on to entropy. Did anybody come over here from entropy to tell me if it's still working or if it went down? I don't know if I mentioned. I just want to make sure I did. I had James super chatted $20. Thank you very much for the kind super chat. I mentioned Amy's. I mentioned American Life, Elizabeth Holmes, Pragmatic, Phoenix, both Jared O, Machiavellius. I don't think I missed any others by way of, that came by way of YouTube. If I did, if I missed your super chat, please tag me before we're finished here. Let me know, and I will check and make sure that I didn't miss it. So let's get on to, I see entropy seems to still be working. I don't know if it is or not, but let's get on to some of these questions from entropy, and then we're going to wrap up. Entropy is still working fine for me, Roy Danton says. Thank you very much for that, brother. If you all have any questions in the closing minutes here, fire them out. Let's see. Stony writes, German Shepherd is a German Shepherd no matter where it is born. Hopefully you can get out of that room and travel to Chile, Brazil, Australia, New Zealand, do a show on location with your fellow European brethren. I absolutely would love to do that. I need a somebody. I don't want to use, I don't have the income to be able to do that sort of thing, and I'm absolutely not going to use the super chats for any traveling unless the purpose is specifically just white well-being. So if I can find somebody that would finance such a trip, I would happily go out and do some on-location shows. That would be fantastic. Yes, Amanda, a familiar alternative is working. If you look for it down in the alternative. Our majority asks, how do I take my coffee? I take it black. No dairy. I don't have any dairy or sugar in my diet because those things are poisons. So let's get on to the next. John writing, can you try to get RC as a guest? We've had RC before, and it was a fantastic discussion. And have the topic be his late friend, the Waffen SS soldier, as he writes about on his blog site. It's one of the most fascinating stories. I'll have to read that, and that sounds like it would be a great conversation. Mike Hawk writing, whatever happened to Dancing Dove? She's still around. She's doing fine. She's a little busy at the moment, but she'll be making more content, and we'll be seeing more of her. She is an absolute gem, isn't she, Mike? I mean, that woman, Jared, George, and I have said about her. I know I said she's like, I think actually though, in Irish lore, perhaps some of you can share this with me. Is a fairy in Irish lore, is that evil? Or is it sometimes good? Anyhow, I made the comment. I hope it didn't insult her. I think I said it with her present, but it's like she's one of these fairies or one of these magical little pixies or something from Ireland, and she's just captivating. She just takes your attention and she puts a smile on your face. She's a lovely woman, and we are glad to have her in the white positive sphere. we hope she'll be making some more videos soon. And maybe we'll have her back on tap as well. So let's see, what else do we have here? Now, these questions, ladies and gentlemen, are coming from Entropy. There's a question category there where you can post questions, and that's where I'm getting these from. Mike says he's disappointed by the lack of gardening tips and the Gardening with No White Guilt channel. I know, I've got to pick that up. We've got to do some more gardening tips. Actually, I have quite a few. We definitely do not fit the anti-white stereotype here in the white positive sphere. I have a hell of a green thumb. And I'm also a big animal lover, as is Dancing Dove. She cares for injured birds. And this world that the anti-whites create, this fiction, is absolutely detonated by what our lives are really like. And I will be happy to show some gardening tips. Raziel says fairies can be good in general, but do not cut their trees down or you'll be cursed. I tell you what, I will leave every living tree on Dancing Dove's property alone. I promise you that. Lord Protector asks, do you have any non-white friends? I have an Asian friend. Absolutely, you can have non-white friends. Why not? Especially if they support white well-being. The real thing is, don't have friends of any race that are anti-white. If they're neutral, if they don't mind you standing up for white well-being of any race, but they're not necessarily going to support or participate, oh well, fine. But if they're anti-white of any race, that's a problem. If they serve white well-being of any race, that's a boon. So yes, of course. Scott says, haven't seen in a long time doing one of my shows. I'm glad to have you back, brother. Thank you. Okay, what else do we have over here? Sifu, did you hear of the hiring practice of Wizards of the Coast game publisher? They said there's too many cis straight white males, close quote. Of course, this is an anti-white slur, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't we use this only for exactly what Sifu is doing here, to specifically convey what exactly was said. But normally we don't use anti-white slurs. If you use anti-white vernacular, you bolster and support and perpetuate it. We don't use it. So thank you very much. But let's see what Sifu has to say. Have I heard about it and encouraged Pox to apply? The Quartering made a vid on it. I don't know who that is. I'll have to look it up. I did not hear about this. This is happening increasingly, though, Sifu, and it is a good thing. Let's hope that they continue to. Let's hope that these biggest companies, all the way down to the mom and pops, say, we want diversity. No white people apply. Because it means, when they say diversity, it means fewer of you. It means white man, white woman, don't you bother applying. It means over at the fast food restaurant, where across this country, across the West, it used to mean this was a great job, or these jobs used to mean that they were a place and a job for young white people to come and get started, get to learning how to go to work for somebody who might be a jerk, who might be good, whatever, but they get the experience. Now they say places like McDonald's, they have all of these diversity hires now, and they'll change these names. Rest assured, they won't keep calling it a diversity hire once enough white people realize that it means that there's a diversity fire. Use that as well. That's a meme curative. They'll change it to something else. It'll become like a challenged person hire or something of this nature. So thank you for that. Sean Alexander super chatting with $2.99, writing, can you try to get Jared Taylor on? We can get him back. Absolutely. He's a good friend and he's appeared before. So we will happily have him on again. Mike says, grow a beard. I've had one before. I've had a couple different types of facial hair cuts, but there's a saying down here in the South that is I adhere to most of the time. And that is, never cultivate on your face what grows wild on your ass. Seeing Red says, whites make up 100% of those disaffected by diversity fires. That's right. All of those decisions impinge heavily on us. All right. Let me ask, because I had a question about the familiar alternative down in the description. Could somebody check and make sure that that is still in place for me before we log out? Now we have, we're on over to Pia writing, what are your favorite movies or those you advise for a white positive experience? Thank you very much. Well, I saw, or Pi, how I don't know the country or language it's coming from, so your pronunciation is going to depend. Maybe you can fill me in next time. But just off the top of my head, I haven't seen them in a long time since they came out in the movie theater. But the Lord of the Rings movies were fantastic for a white positive sentiment and theme. They refer to themselves as men of the West. And look here, the great HB 2014 has just shown up saying he didn't receive a notice of the live stream today. How many? We actually had quite a few people who did not receive a notice of the stream today. So we are actually, ladies and gentlemen, very exciting thing. We might be working on a means, new software, and this will be specific to, at least initially, to white well-being. And this will be a new software that will enable you to log into this. There's Laurel. Great to see you. Right as we're checking out. Can somebody tell me what's happening with Poseidon? I don't want to. I love the guy. I don't want to run over his show. But a new software, specifically starting off just for the all of you folks in white well-being, and you'll be able to insert. Perhaps this will be how it works out. Your whatever specific platform or group you want to be attached to, or from you're coming from, and then I will be able to make an announcement, and it will go out to you. Maybe you're on 4 platforms, it'll hit all 4 platforms. You're on 6 platforms, it'll hit 6 platforms with the alerts. And then that'll be the end of the anti-whites shutting down the alerts, because this is ridiculous. We'll just proliferate the means by which the alerts can be sent, and then they'll have to give up on trying to take us down. They can go bother someone else. And we can continue to do the good work for our people. So let's see. So Lord of the Rings, they call themselves men of the West. They are proud. They are heroic. They fight. And now remember, these creatures are these. I think they were called orcs and other creatures. They have. They're ugly. They're representing not just a body of an invading people, etc., but an idea. And that idea, you can see that idea as anti-whiteism. You can see that as the force that is arrayed against us, that is destroying all that is fair and noble and glorious in our creation, and therefore something that we are supremely morally situated to defend ourselves against. There is nothing moral about the eradication of our people. There's nothing moral about lowering your shield so that eradication can take place. There is nothing moral about white erasure and permitting that to happen, and certainly endorsing it or enabling it to happen, ladies and gentlemen. So check out those films. I'm going to watch them again because we had Laura Lee on tap, and we had a fantastic conversation, and she had some very insightful information to share. Yonash writing, hello. I just came. What have I missed? He wrote that a little bit earlier in the regular chat. We're just saving the white race, brother. Matthew, I tried messaging you on Telegram. Any chance we can get you to start using that platform? Well, I'm going to be using it more, as a matter of fact. So I will take a look. And are you Matthew on that platform? I'll try to find you. And we have Bite Lord writing with the question, do you drink any alcohol? And the answer is no. I have occasionally, or I will occasionally have well, I'm trying to think of the last time I had something. I had as you saw, the proper type of glass during the birthday party for Tap last year, sort of a thimbles full of some port. And so, no, normally I do not drink alcohol. Anything that interferes with the proper functioning in any way, shape, or form, I abjure. But I'm not teetotaler, I guess. So I don't reject. I'm not ascetic. I don't reject all alcohol for the total. I don't have I guess it is to say also I don't have a problem with alcohol. I don't. If I have a drink, I'm not going to need more. But I just rarely drink it. Mostly it's water and coffee. Now let's see. Looks like we have My Think super chatting with $10 Canadian over on Entropy. If you don't feel ready to bring up anti-whites, you can still introduce a pro-European lexicon based on the context you are in. Talk to folk, break the anti-white stereotypes about white well-being. Absolutely. Let me see now. If you don't feel ready to bring up anti-whites, you mean the phrase anti-white? I know a lot of people are afraid, and just think about this, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, did anybody head over to the Familiar Alternative to see if it is working? If you could head on over to the Familiar Alternative and just come back and tag me and let me know if it's working or not. Okay, 9 Nights says Poseidon is live and speaking. All right, folks, we're going to be closing up here shop in just one moment. Mike Hawk says, where can I watch the John Q. Publius video that got taken down? Yeah, by the anti-white bastards. Yes, they did. I'm going to put it up on BitChute. So thank you for that. And what was I just speaking? Oh yeah, think about how awful it is that our people out there who care about white well-being are afraid to say that something is anti-white. I know it is. I know you're afraid, some of you. Don't try to get it past me. I've been doing this for too long. I know that what immediately happens in your heart is you think that if you say something, and it's true, if you say that something's anti-white, that means you object to the infliction of harm on our people. How sick have they made us? How sick have they made? I want you to leave here today. Go to work this week. Go to Poseidon's chat after I wrap up here. Go to the chat tomorrow night in different chats. Talk about the fact that we have become so infected with these MPs, that we are suffering so grievously from white noir, that we are afraid, that there are those of us who are afraid to admit that they object to the infliction of harm on our people. Good God, think about that, ladies and gentlemen. You're not advancing something positive for whites. You are merely objecting to the infliction of harm, and you're afraid to do it. That is how sick the anti-whites have made our people. Put this in a realistic context. Put this in like a context where you can see that you see a child is being beaten, and you won't beaten senselessly by an adult. Not a spanking. I mean beaten senselessly by an adult, being punched in the face. And you have been made so afraid to stop that beating that you do nothing. How sick would you have to be? That is how sick you are right now. Think about that. That is what they've done to us. Okay, seeing red. Much obliged to you, good sir. Much or sorry if I'm getting your sex wrong. Much obliged to you. Much obliged. Thank you. Okay, so we have a super chat over on Entropy from Roy Danton. This is the last super chat, I think. $10. Thank you so much, Roy, again for coming back again with another blessed super chat and writing. I really like the quartering as well as heels versus babyface, talking about gaming. Today's show is also so fascinating that I almost let my steak burn in the oven. I'm sorry about that, Roy. Just got it out in time, and it was great. Well done. Eat some steak on me. That's fantastic. Thank you, Matthew. I see your account there in the questions, and I will look you up and see what message you left. And Roy, also, thank you very much for that $1 super chat to test. Thank you very much, good sir. Well, folks, let me run up the chat really quickly, just make sure that I didn't miss any of you all. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank my excellent mods and for Jilly Storm coming in and doing some modding as well for us. When Sadinsky disappeared and he had to do whatever he had to do. Thank you so much, Sadinsky. HB 2014, great seeing you. Thank you for being here. All of you good people in the chat, asking questions, making comments. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for letting me know where Poseidon was. Give him a big hello for me when you get over there. Lisa P says, shocker, a southerner who doesn't drink iced tea. I drink it without sugar. I occasionally have iced tea without sugar as well. So it depends on the circumstance, and nice cup of iced tea, nice glass of iced tea rather, on a hot southern day really hits the spot. So absolutely, well said. Thank you, Roy. Thank all of you who provided me with information. Zach, you're most welcome in return. Thank you all for coming here for Go Free. Let me see. Jason C, way to go, Jason. Another nice one. Thank you so much. And really quick, let me run over here and make sure I didn't miss anybody's super chats. All right, it looks like we have gotten to everybody's super chats. Thank everyone who has super chatted again, and another big thank you to Final Blossom, because I think that was the first. I think that was the first two super chats ever from Final Blossom. So thank you very much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic time going free with you all today. I hope we all gained a little bit from this live stream today. I have a few other notes, but I want to get over there to watch Poseidon. If you haven't already planned, head on over to his channel. If somebody could put his link in the chat, that would be fantastic, so we can get over there and support that good man and the work he's doing. He's got a great vibe to his stream. He's got great guests on all the time. The great Spartan Warrior Queen is very often there. You'll find another group of stars from the white positive spheres there as well. They'll be talking about a lot of news, a lot of things going on, and providing some great insight. So I hope to see you all here. Maybe we'll make this Sunday a normal thing, and we will just continue going free. It is an honor to serve with all of you. You are the best of our people. I love you all. Let's go free.